Chapter 37. Chapter 37. Senior, let's talk about our bet. Li Lingtian stood up, suppressed the flaming qi within him, and returned Fire Dragon's heart to his dantian. He collected himself and restored balance to his body after using heaven and earth reincarnation. He secretly thought to himself that he would never have dared to use Fire Dragon's heart if not for the situation. Li Lingtian's plans almost backfired, and that left him with traces of distress. Young sport, you have a future ahead of you. I hope that you won't disrespect this skill. Also, you must not touch that thing within it before you reach the warrior ascendant level, or else even the gods won't be able to save you. Tian he unwillingly withdrew a flaming red jade slip from his storage sack. He carefully advised Li Lingtian before tossing it over to him. The future seemed bright for this warrior with a flaming sacred body. If he could master the skill contained in the jade slip, his capability would improve in leaps and bounds. However, there was something inside the jade slip that even Tian he dared not meddle with. He hoped that Li Lingtian would not touch it too because it could lead to the disciple's destruction. Thank you, Senior. Li Lingtian used his divine mindfulness to access the jade slip. He relied on his cultivation of heaven and earth reincarnation and other experiences to quickly verify the jade slip's authenticity. While he was in there, the warrior also saw a powerful seal, which he assumed was the terrifying thing that Tian he had mentioned. Upon completing his checks, Li Lingtian bowed respectfully at Tian he. This warrior ascendant powerhouse was a man of his word and turned out to be quite a candid character too. The other warriors' minds were blown. They had witnessed Li Lingtian claim his winnings and heard Tian he praise him after that. One should definitely feel proud to receive praise from a warrior ascendant powerhouse. They just never thought that this warrior-level disciple, whom they looked down upon all this while, turned out to be so powerful. Alright, we're done with that, so let's get back to discussing this hidden Dragon Isle business. If Sky Cloud Sect has Li Lingtian entering as well, there wouldn't be a problem exiting. You just need to be careful. Tian he swiftly switched the topic and began the discussion on Hidden Dragon Isle. He looked over to Li Lingtian with a disheartened smile. It took a strong one to know one, and although this disciple was no warrior ascendant, he will definitely be a powerhouse in time to come. After that, the elders and masters of Big Four sects decided that all the disciples from their sects were to refrain from fighting against each other. They should extend a helping hand whenever they could, and when they could not, no internal fighting should ensue. The three other empires and the other superclans were opponents to the Sky Dragon Empire's forces. A few other masters had also decided to pass this message on to the other clans in Sky Dragon Empire. Radiant sects Qing Tian, Bo Mu, Xiao Tian, and Lu Xinjuan. Misty Pavilions Luoyu, Lu Yi, Dongfang Tian, Huoxiao. Green Jade sects Morong Jiu, Qing Fengting, Zhou Qinglong, Lu Suifeng. Sky Cloud sects Li Lingtian, Zhou Yun, Dongfang Qingyu, Qing Yen. They are the core elite disciples of Big Four sect. All the disciples from these four sects, if you did not meet anyone from your own sect, you are required to stand by all these disciples whose name I have just called and remain united as one. 1. All disciples are to attack those who would start an internal fight and put an end to them. Even if they successfully exit Hidden Dragon Isle, or if they're geniuses, the Big Four sects shall cripple their cultivation and expel them from the sect. After the warrior kings from Big Four sects had their discussion with Tian he, they gave each other a clap as a gesture of swearing unity among their disciples. Anyone who intended to fight each other would be killed. This would suffice in uniting the disciples who were about to enter Hidden Dragon Isle. The elders and the warrior ascendant powerhouse had even given each other a clap to affirm their unity. That was enough to prove their determination. Among all these disciples, Li Lingtian was the only warrior. Dongfang Qingyu was a Tier 6 warrior spirit, while the rest were all Tier 9 warrior spirits, with some only one step away from the warrior king level. Most of them thought Li Lingtian was just lucky to defeat Tian He's flaming strength. They dared not offend Li Lingtian though, because they would all be dead if he were to get angry and summon Fire Dragon's heart. Big Four sects flew for half a day before they finally met the rest of Sky Dragon Empire's families and forces. Although not as strong as Big Four sects, they still had quite a number of first-rank genius disciples. All Sky Dragon Empire's disciples were made to understand that the Empire must unite during this moment as Tian He explained Big Four sects' decisions to them. Their greatest enemies were the threat in Hidden Dragon Isle and the super geniuses from other empires. Rumble, rumble. Roar, roar. After flying for a day, the swift boat contingent came to borderless sea. The sounds of pounding waves were especially loud and swift boats were in every single corner of the sky. What a magnificent view indeed. Li Lingtian watched as countless swift boats flew past each other in the airspace. He thought of the World War scenes he had seen on television in his previous life, the skies densely packed with fighter jet. However, those fighter jets were not as huge as these swift boats, nor were they as majestic. There were huge airships among the swift boats at borderless sea. Each airship was as large as 10 swift boats with proportionally stronger horsepowers as well. Hundreds of swift boats and airships were seen circling over borderless sea, but no one landed their vehicles. All of a sudden, great vigors quaked the sky and tore the surrounding air into shreds. The presence of Tian He the warrior ascendant superhouse was already intimidating enough. However, as they approached borderless sea, there were 30 other warrior ascendant superhouses just like him. Sky Dragon sect only had one warrior ascendant, which was Tian He, who was considered a newbie in that tier, while the other superforces were all led by warrior kings. The sects of other empires were all led by warrior ascendants though. There was a huge disparity between their strengths under such a comparison. Damn it, I'll have my own fleet of airships next time. Li Lingtian thought to himself as he looked at all the swift boats and airships in front of him. All of them were only here to show off, what the heck. There were hundreds of such vehicles and tens and thousands of powerhouses. Everyone was just minding their own business on their swift boats, engaged in their own meditation and cultivation, and waiting for the opening of Hidden Dragon Isle. Once you've entered Hidden Dragon Isle, search up north. Bai Yen keenly made a voice transmission to Li Lingtian. After they came to borderless sea, he kept imparting his knowledge on Hidden Dragon Isle to Li Lingtian and the other 3 disciples. He never entered Hidden Dragon Isle, but the others from Sky Cloud sect had. A few generations of powerhouses had gone in and came out successfully, and their recollections of experiences were passed on. All the best treasures were located up north in Hidden Dragon Isle. When the time came, those that were teleported out of there usually exited from the north too. Li Lingtian listened and made mental notes of what Bai Yen said. At the same time, he too instructed the other disciples about the few important medicinal supplies and demonic beast materials that they needed to get at Hidden Dragon Isle. As days passed, the tidal sounds grew louder while the skies grew darker. The fog had blanketed all of borderless sea, and that greatly restricted visibility. On that very day, a purple electric arc which was over 3 yards long punctured the sky and hit the sea with great destructive force. Rumble, rumble. There was a deafening explosion and the earth began to shake. This was heaven's prestige, and it made all the warriors tremble with fear. Everyone who was brought in front of heaven's prestige was bound to be struck down by terror. Warrior spirits, warrior kings, and warrior ascendants alike. All the swift boats sped backward after the thunderous strike of this electric arc. They all observed heaven's prestige from afar as countless bolts of lightning cracked and struck down from the skies, followed by booming thunder. The whole world seemed like it was coming to an end, which was frightening for all the warriors as their facial expressions were as dark as the skies they were under. It went on for 10 minutes until the lightning finally stopped and the fog in the skies cleared up. It was sunny again. One then realized that a huge rift had appeared in the sky. It was about 1/3 of a mile wide, and its length was 10 times its width. A flood of white light spilled out of the rift like the silver river from the ninth heaven. 1. The white light had a diameter of around 110 yards. As soon as it landed straight into borderless sea, heaven and earth fused to become one. Move! As the white light settled, all warrior ascendant powerhouses from the Big Four sects came forward to surround it and started hurling spells at it. A massive formation soon rose to encircle the white light. A large green formation disk was tossed into it. Upon completion, all warrior ascendant powerhouses backed away swiftly and stood on the sea bank. "Get ready with the onyx crystal!" Bai Yen yelled at his Sky Cloud sect disciples. The seniors from other sects too were getting their disciples ready with onyx crystals, which represented a place in the formation. One could never enter the formation without the onyx crystal. It was the brainchild of the 4 great empires and a few superfamilies. There were only 10,000 spots for all. No more, no less. Li Lingtian took the onyx crystal out from his storage sack and grasped it firmly, waiting to get into the formation. Quite a number of warriors had already flown towards the formation. Those with the onyx crystal entered without any difficulty. Upon their entrance, the white light drew them into the rift with a pulling force, and they were then out of everyone's sight. Rumble, rumble. 5 minutes had passed. An explosion cracked out from the rift. A warrior had turned into ashes. It was all because your sect's disciple is over 30 years old. 10% of your next entrance quota shall be taken away. A Tier 4 warrior ascendant powerhouse bellowed across the skies as soon as he saw what happened. He glanced over sternly at an elder from a southern empire family, who was quick to admit his mistake and accept the punishment. No warrior above the age of 30 could enter Hidden Dragon Isle. An immediate death would await them at the rift. Li Lingtian had a rude awakening as he observed the whole episode. Anyone who was 30 years old would be reduced to ashes. No one would dare to mess around. F***CK. In his previous life, he was 20 years old and 15 in this life. He really got screwed up big time. Although he was worried, Li Lingtian chose to put up a brave front. As the rest of Sky Cloud sect's disciples headed toward the formation, he sped up to follow them, his eyes gleaming brighter than ever. Chapter 38. Chapter 38. Li Lingtian was in shock while he stood in the formation. The white light immediately entered his body, and he felt like he had been submerged into a hot spring. The white light had transported him to the rift before he could even react, but as he got nearer, the light started to tremble. Li Lingtian was frightened to death. He was already well past 30 years old with his previous and current life added up. The opening seemed to sense that something was off, but it was unable to decide on his age. Swoosh! The rift's trembling ceased. Li Lingtian's body was forcefully thrown out and went straight through the opening. After regaining his ability to react, he realized that he was amidst a grassy plain. The warriors who had yet to enter the formation felt the opening tremble too. However, since no one was killed like in the previous situation, the other warrior ascendants had nothing to say. Ha 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 ha. You're here at last. You've kept me waiting for the past 3,000 reincarnation cycles, and you're finally back. It was then when a faint voice came from the depths of Hidden Dragon Isle. All of Hidden Dragon Isle began to shake with uneasiness as if it was at the brink of destruction. This only happened within a split second, but all the warriors who entered Hidden Dragon Isle had sensed the destructive chi. When faced with this chi of doom, they were all as helpless as a baby. What's going on? Are we going to die? What a terrifying chi! It is the ruination chi, the raging chi. The warriors on Hidden Dragon Isle were petrified. As they looked at the sky, their gaze was restless and fearful, as if the world had come to an end. Hidden Dragon Isle calmed down in an instant. It made what happened before seemed like a passing illusion where none of it was ever real. So this is Hidden Dragon Isle. Li Lingtian glanced around using divine mindfulness to take a good scan of the surroundings after he descended. There was not a single soul nor demonic beast within a 3-mile radius from him. After he peaked at being a Tier 9 warrior, his divine mindfulness was strong enough to scan up to 3 miles, which was similar to a Tier 9 warrior spirit. A usual Tier 9 warrior's divine mindfulness could only see less than a mile, but he could see up to 3 miles. He could not have achieved this level of success without having the heaven and earth reincarnation's power and a double soul. What a rich spiritual chi! I should look for a place to rest first and get my directions sorted out. Li Lingtian was surprised to see how substantial the spiritual chi was. It was so rich that his cultivation could speed up by just being there, which was much faster than consuming a grade 1 vitality pill. Even if he did not manage to get all the medicinal supplies and treasures, the trip would be worth it if he were to cultivate for half a year. The rich spiritual chi was beneficial for the herb's growth, and so precious medicinal supplies were plentiful. One would be out of luck if they found none. That being said, Li Lingtian flew to one of the mountain summits in a swift move. It was necessary to take a break before planning the next step, especially when one knew nothing of the place which was filled with unknowns. Li Lingtian meditated for a full hour in a cave. He then opened his eyes and strolled out with a confident smirk on his face. Last time, when he competed against the warrior ascendant powerhouse Tian, he using flaming strength, he used Fire Dragon's heart to his advantage and got his hands on heaven and earth conflagration. It was risky indeed, but Li Lingtian benefited from being able to further perfect his flaming strength. His mastery over Fire Dragon's heart had improved, and it would not take long for the conception of his flaming divine fist to occur as well. On top of that, he also cultivated heaven and earth conflagration. Li Lingtian's cultivation barely scratched the surface, but an earth-tier skill itself carried a great deal of power. Even at its surface, flaming divine fist could not match up to it even at its best. A display of heaven and earth conflagration could turn the surrounding area of a little more than 100 yards into a sea of flames. Mighty fires would lick the skies, and not even a warrior spirit powerhouse could get away from it. What was more horrifying was that all demonic beasts and warriors that happened to be within that vicinity would have their true chi absorbed by the warrior using the skill. This way, the user's true chi would be replenished, and heaven and earth conflagration would be fortified. The decrease of a warrior's speed and cultivation within an attack zone would be one of Li Lingtian's trump cards. Upon exiting the cave, Li Lingtian activated divine mindfulness. 1.5 miles away, there were 2 Tier 3 warrior spirit masters fighting each other. He wrinkled his brow ever so slightly. Rumble, rumble. At Hidden Dragon Isle, those 2 warriors spared no mercy for each other. They wanted to get it over and done with before it attracted other warriors, which would mean more trouble. Swoosh! A small sound zapped through the air. Li Lingtian descended and observed the fight between the 2 warriors from afar. His darting sight found a sprig of 100-year-old herb which emitted spiritual chi growing from the ground. 100-year-old moon falling grass. Great, I'm keeping it. He applied Breeze technique shortly after he spoke. This century-old sprig of herb was an important ingredient for the refinery of a grade 3 pill. It would be a waste if he did not take it. Li Lingtian got hold of the century-old moon falling grass in the blink of an eye. The 2 warriors were still fighting with all their might. He safely stashed the herb and grinned while he spectated the ongoing brawl. Oi, half-breed! Leave the moon falling grass alone or else I'll tear you up. Yang Ming flew into a rage when he saw that moon falling grass had been picked up by a warrior-level disciple. They were risking their lives battling each other, but a rubbish warrior took it to his advantage. You piece of sh*t, I'll definitely kill you today. Zhou Qing stopped fighting and glared at Li Lingtian as well. The mediocre spiritual equipment he held was emitting gentle swirls of spiritual qi. An urge to kill rose from the bottom of his heart. You two pieces of rubbish are just risking your life over a sprig of a century-old moon falling grass. Get lost. Li Lingtian icily uttered his words. He recalled that both of them were not from Sky Dragon Empire. Even if they were from Sky Dragon Empire, he would still get his hands on the things that he wanted. Sky's ablaze sword. 100 kills fist. The two warrior spirits were stunned. Who would have thought that a warrior-level disciple could be that arrogant when faced with two warrior spirit-level warriors? To say that they were infuriated was an understatement. They leaped out of sight and bolted over toward Li Lingtian at full speed. Strong attacks were coming at him with merciless force. They reckoned this rubbish warrior could be slashed dead in one blow. Die! Bright moon and soft breeze. Flaming divine fist. Li Lingtian was all smiles when he saw the two Tier 3 warrior spirits coming at him with their attacks. He raised his arm and an astounding sword appeared in his hand, which he then swung out with a light flick of his arm. There was a sliver flicker of the sword's reflection in the air. At the same time, flaming divine fist was thunderously rolled out. Bright moon and soft breeze were as fast as lightning, while flaming divine fist was invincible. Slash. Clank. Rumble. Astounding sword was a strong and mighty peerless grade spiritual equipment. The existence of its grade was unparalleled among spiritual equipment. Li Lingtian's display of the bright moon and soft breeze technique made it even more powerful. Sky's ablaze sword was cut into half. Blood started trickling through a cut on Zhou Qing's neck. His widened eyes that were once filled with horror had now turned into despair. Flaming divine fist was served in just a punch. Its mighty flaming strength was supported by Fire Dragon's heart's undercurrent power. Yang Ming was thoroughly scorched. Two Tier 3 warrior spirits, huh? Not bad. Just that one could only be asking for death when faced with a peerless grade spiritual equipment and flaming divine fist. Li Lingtian's gaze swept across his fist and his peerless spiritual equipment while he commented indifferently. Those two Tier 3 warrior spirit masters died before they could let out a cry, just like weaklings. Let's not be wasteful here. Li Lingtian mumbled softly while going through Yang Ming and Zhou Qing's storage sack. His methods were so skillful one could almost believe he was used to killing and looting. Swoosh! With his storage sack well packed, Li Lingtian employed the motion skill and dashed away from the scene. He was lost in the bushes within a flash. The two warriors shall be buried here forever. Li Lingtian flew closer to the ground while using divine mindfulness to monitor his surroundings. If there were strong demonic beasts ahead, he would then take a detour. He took a glimpse at the blazing sun in the sky, picked a direction, and headed toward it. One day passed ever so easily. Not only had he killed two warrior spirit powerhouses, but Li Lingtian also killed two Tier 2 level 6 demonic beasts. He did not need to search for materials anymore given his gain today. All that was left to do was just to harvest its internal vitals. In this strange and unpredictable forest, anyone would be a fool to not look for a safe place for themselves. Li Lingtian had a better understanding of Hidden Dragon Isle after sprinting around for a day. Hidden Dragon Isle was a lone island and overall a huge one. 10,000 warriors entered this space, yet he only met 2 of them today. One would have an idea on how huge the isle was by then. It was impossible for anyone to be transported into Hidden Dragon Isle with someone they knew because the transmission was random, unless there was a coincidence. Growl. Deep into the night, the isle became a heaven for demonic beasts. The howls and growls echoed loudly within Hidden Dragon Isle. Li Lingtian found a cave on a cliff and decided that it would be his hiding spot. Chapter 39. Chapter 39. Sitting with his legs crossed, Li Lingtian was fully immersed in cultivating heaven and earth reincarnation and gaining insight on heaven and earth conflagration. Damn, don't they all come in pairs? Moments after he sat down to rest, a swoosh came out from nowhere. Li Lingtian had a vantage point over the cliff and could see two shadows, one chasing after another at a distance. He could not help but find it amusing. He had only met two people fighting over an herb after he entered Hidden Dragon Isle. Not even a single soul was seen for the rest of the day. There was someone at last, actually two of them, and it seemed like they were also in a brawl over something. However, he was all by himself, cultivating alone. Put down the green onyx fruit and I will leave your corpse intact. A booming voice blasted through the atmosphere. As soon as it stopped, a tall, burly figure leaped into the air and jumped right in front of the person who was running away. It's her. What a coincidence. The two warriors came near the cliff, and Li Lingtian caught a good glimpse of their faces. There was a tall and well-built man who seemed to be in his mid-20s that was a Tier 8 warrior spirit who held an ordinary grade spiritual equipment. 5 yards away, this man was faced by a petite lady in her early 20s. She was an unmatched beauty, yet she looked pitiful as her fair, glowing face had smudges of blood at the corner of her mouth. Lu from Misty Pavilion. Li Lingtian did not expect to see Misty Pavilion's Lu, who was one of the sect's core disciples. A Tier 6 warrior spirit disciple who made it to the core. That puzzled him because Misty Pavilion was not short of Tier 9 warrior spirit disciples. It was Bai Yen who told him that Lui's true identity was not to be underestimated, as the elders of Misty Pavilion were also clueless about her origins and her background. Humph, dream as you wish, but the green onyx fruit will not be yours. Her voice was sweet, melodious, and had a mystical quality about it. Her pretty eyes glanced around for an escape route as she knew she could not fend off the Tier 8 warrior spirit powerhouse. If that's the case, I have both you and the green onyx fruit then. Mighty Storm Cloud Sword Technique. Su Tian had a sly grin in his face. No one could possibly remain untempted by such an attractive woman. Since there was no one around, he would be filled with joy if he could get his hands on green onyx fruit and have his way with this beauty while he was at it. As soon as he finished what he said, Su Tian displayed Storm Cloud Sword, the ordinary grade peerless equipment that he was holding. At that instant, the sword's glints swirled around and swiftly formed into a six-hilt sword of silhouettes. The winds and clouds rolled around with imposing vigor in the atmosphere. Li Lingtian, who stood atop the cliff, was deeply shaken. This Tier 8 warrior spirit had demonstrated Mighty Storm Cloud Sword technique from Tianjin Empire's Divine Sword sect. It was so powerful that its strength could easily surpass his vast obscure extermination. Senior sister, would you share one of your green onyx fruit with your junior brother? Li Lingtian transmitted his voice to the panic-stricken Louis. He was determined to get the green onyx fruit, but it might not be a good idea to seize it from her. He also did not want Su Tian to lay hands on this pretty lady. Skynet shield block. Lu was terrorized to the core as she looked at the mighty glints of the blade. Su Tian had been hunting her down for hours, and she only managed to make it this far using the numerous treasures in her possession. Seeing that her opponent had started hurling such brutal attacks, Lu was out of ideas and had no choice but to use her last piece of treasure. The faint voice transmitted to her at that instant made her even more petrified with the realization that her situation had just become worse. Rumble! The few strokes of sword silhouettes hit Skynet shield with a thunderous bang. Lu was violently pushed a few yards back. Skynet shield was losing its glimmer. This peerless grade spiritual equipment had blocked an attack from Mighty Storm Cloud Sword technique and was wounded. You have quite some treasures with you. A peerless grade spiritual equipment, it would be of nice use to me. Let's see how you'll hold up to this. Su Tian was actually taken aback by the fact that his mighty storm cloud sword technique, which had always been invincible, was blocked by his opponent's peerless grade spiritual equipment. He had been chasing after her for a while, and she had an endless hoard of treasures. Greed rose from the bottom of his heart. "All right. If you eliminate him, I'll give you the green onyx fruit." Lu Yi started talking toward a direction where there was no one, which freaked Su Tian out. He quickly thought that Lu Yi was trying to deceive him. As expected, Lu Yi turned around and ran away. "You'd think I'm easily tricked, but I'm not a kid. I'll let you know what I'm made of." Su Tian was convinced that Lu Yi intended to deceive him, as she was already running away. He did not hesitate to use motion skills to pursue her. That was when a fatal chi came down on him. Vast obscure extermination, time to die. A strange, destructive blade aura descended from the sky at top speed as soon as those ice-cold words were said. The blade aura transformed into countless silver needles that tore through the air and went toward Su Tian's direction. There was a tinge of vast obscure extermination chi in the air that made Su Tian quiver involuntarily. Mighty storm cloud sword technique, thousand shadows of sword flickers. He bellowed and swung his storm cloud sword around rapidly. Numerous blade shadows shot toward the incoming attack. Clink, clatter, rumble. The air was in a constant quiver as the clashing of blade shadows and silver needles brought about a lot of clatters. A giant boom marked the end when the two hefty blade auras collided. The explosion threw Su Tian out of sight and created a great hole in the ground. Li Lingtian descended, looked at Lu Yi who was standing afar and grinned ever so slightly. "It's you." Lu Yi saw Li Lingtian's figure and recognized him straight away. This teenage boy with a seemingly rubbish cultivation level was the one whom the warrior ascendant powerhouse wanted as a disciple. She was nonetheless comforted to see someone from Sky Dragon Empire. Blurg. Somewhere far away, sounds of blood being spat out could be heard. Su Tian was pale in the face while he spewed a mouthful of blood. He was also in deep, deep shame. He was from Divine Sword Sect, which was a sect that specialized in sword cultivation. No one could ever compete with them in Eastern Spirit Greenland, and yet he had lost to a blade aura today. As this was not a fighting ring where he could just admit defeat to save his life, he was more disappointed with his loss. He gave an icy stare at the teenager in front of him and was at a loss for words. A 15-year-old teenager who only had a warrior cultivation level. He also noticed that the weapon held by the boy was an unexpected peerless grade. Mighty Storm Cloud Sword Technique, Destroyer Sword. I'll serve you your death. A destructive force tore up the air in the skies. All the plants and boulders were transformed into numerous sharp and glinting blade shadows. Every drop of blood seemed to have left Su Tian's face. He was suffering, and his eyes were filled with hatred. He's a Tier 8 warrior spirit. Beware, junior brotherly, as this is Mighty Storm Cloud Sword Technique's forbidden skill from Divine Sword Sect. Lu Yi was shouting words of caution to Li Lingtian. She was then taken aback by her concern for this stranger. Ice and Fire Ring. Li Lingtian could not risk making mistakes at this point as well. He had experience cultivating astounding sword technique and understood the strengths of such sword forms and skills. Not to mention that the Destroyer Sword had exceeded his expectations. It was even more appalling than his vast, obscure extermination. He could not display thousand shadows of fluttering flowers since he had not cultivated the technique, so it was a waste of time talking about it. Ice and Fire Ring had a powerful defense. It would be wise to first protect himself. Ice Vitality Divine Fist, 300-mile Frost. Immemorial Ice Crystal was mobilized under Ice and Fire Ring's display. The temperature within 100 yards dropped drastically and the surrounding area turned into a glacier. Meanwhile, Ice Vitality Divine Fist headed toward Su Tion's direction with smashing force and speed. Rumble. Crack. Splash. The glacier's formation had frozen the blade shadows formed by the numerous plants and boulders in ice, which greatly slowed down its attacking speed. Destroyer Sword's chi was also successfully held up by the ice barrier. Lu Yi and Su Tian were bewildered by the glacier taking shape. While Su Tian was stunned by the ongoing business, an icy chi of doom hit and turned him into an ice statue. That ice statue shattered into smithereens under Li Lingtian's single punch. Su Tian's eyes were churning despair and horror before everything was gone with the fragmented pieces. Thud, thud, thud. Li Lingtian's body recoiled a few yards. The ice and fire ring in front of him gradually disappeared and lost its glow. What a terrifying destroyer sword! He was utterly shocked as all the other blade shadows had been frozen and slowed down in the glacier, yet the destroyer's sword managed to break through it. If not for the defense from ice and fire ring, he would have been heavily wounded. Oh no, someone's coming this way. His divine mindfulness picked up a strong chi 1.5 miles away which was heading toward them. The speed detected was amazingly fast and was as good as his breeze technique. Li Lingtian stopped talking. Su Tian's storage sack and storm cloud sword were quickly stashed away, and off he dashed toward Louis. Both of them then bolted from the scene. Their shadows disappeared immediately in the dark of the night. They would be safe in the forest because no one would ever go there unless they encountered demonic beasts. How frightening! Icepath Warrior Soul and 3,000-mile Frost. And Divine Sword Sex Forbidden Skill Destroyer Sword. For sure it wasn't easy to steer clear from its attacks. They better not cross paths with me though. The murderer of Divine Sword Sex members was nothing compared to me. Li Lingtian and Lu Yi were not even gone for 2 minutes before a shadow tore through the atmosphere and descended at the scene. The young adult was surprised when he looked over the huge pit in the ground, the ice bits of the remaining glacier, and the blade aura in the atmosphere. Warrior King Powerhouse. Chapter 40 Louis. Chapter 40 Louis. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. In the forest, a beautiful petite maiden and a 15-year-old young man in white ran nonstop for half an hour. Both of them were exhausted. Junior brother, how's your wound? Louis noticed Li Lingtian had stopped running. With a worried expression, she asked softly. The girl was proud and arrogant. With a cold and expressionless face, she treated everyone with indifference. However, this young man was different, because he had an appealing charisma and aura. Being only a Tier 9 warrior who had entered the depths of the hidden Dragon Isle, it shocked her that he could take an attack that she could not. No wonder the Sky Cloud sect dared to grant this genius entrance to the hidden Dragon Isle. The care she had shown to this young man was, mostly, because he had saved her. It's alright, just a small wound, I just have to tend to it for a bit. How about you, senior sister? Li Lingtian carefully inspected the wound on his body. The injury sustained from the destroyer sword's shockwave would only require some minor treatment. Although the ice and fire ring was extraordinary, his cultivation level was still too low. Otherwise, he would not have been injured. It was not by choice that Li Lingtian had to run throughout the journey. His divine mindfulness had discovered the existence of a powerhouse on a warrior king's level. No matter how confident he was in his abilities, Li Lingtian would not dare pick a fight with a warrior king at this point. Junior brotherly, have this green onyx fruit as thanks for saving me. Louis spoke seriously as she brought out a fist-sized fruit and gave it to Li Lingtian. Although he had only saved her because he wanted the green onyx fruit, he was still sincerely grateful. That was women for you. Whoever pleased them would be seen as a good person. Thank you, senior sister Lu. This green onyx fruit is very important to me as a Tier 9 warrior. Otherwise, I wouldn't take it from you. Li Lingtian showed a hint of embarrassment. It was already hard for the Dragon Empire, and they needed to be helping each other. He felt slightly guilty for asking for the fruit from Louis in exchange for saving her from danger. By the way, I made this spirit binding pill. It could be useful to you, senior sister. Please take it. Upon completing his sentence, Li Lingtian took out a jade bottle from his storage sack. He had made this bottle of pills when he had free time during the competition period in an attempt to improve his pill art. You're an apothecary. Louis had a shocked expression on her delicate face. It was already shocking to know that this 15-year-old genius had cultivated to the level of a Tier 9 warrior. She had not expected him to also be an apothecary. The gentle yet cold beauty now had the expression of a little girl. Her shocked expression made her look even more charming. Coupled with her power from the misty pavilion cultivation, she looked like a goddess from legends. Hee, I was bored so I just practiced it for fun, Li Lingtian said as he laughed. Facing this peerless beauty, his heart pounded non-stop. A spirit-binding pill, not bad, Louis said and shook her head wordlessly. She felt at a loss for words knowing that he had only practiced it because he was bored. Louis opened the jade bottle to check if they were actually spirit-binding pills. Spirit-binding pills could only be made by Tier 2 apothecaries, and this young man was only 15 years old. No one would believe that he was a Tier 2 apothecary. However, what she saw next made her even more astonished. What? This is a superior grade 2 spirit-binding pill. You're a great apothecary? 2. Haha, I'm not sure, I just practiced. I can't use spirit-binding pills easily because I'm a warrior. When I produced the pills, I was already a Tier 9 warrior. Li Lingtian made a helpless gesture. It could only be blamed on the fact that he had cultivated too quickly. Let me see your vitality pill. Don't tell me that it's also a superior one. Louis carefully placed the spirit-binding pill into her storage sack. A superior spirit-binding pill was extremely powerful. Although she had owned countless treasures, she had never owned a superior spirit-binding pill. Here. Li Lingtian took out a jade bottle that only had a few vitality pills inside. Since he was already at the Tier 9 peak, using pills would not be beneficial. It would simply be a waste if he consumed it. He continued walking forward after handing the jade bottle to Louis. This place was not safe. He had to find a safe place to heal his wounds and also refine the green onyx fruit. As a warrior, the green onyx fruit had endless benefits and could almost boost his warrior spirit by a 100%. Otherwise, he would not have gone against that Tier 8 warrior spirit powerhouse just to obtain it. Peerless, it's a peerless vitality pill. Behind him, Louis looked at the pill in her hand with a shocked expression. It was a legendary peerless pill. In the divine martial continent, a peerless pill was only spoken of in legends. It was impossible, even for a spiritual apothecary, to make a grade 1 peerless pill. She never thought that this young man in front of her would have such amazing capabilities. Not only that, his pill art was even more astounding. It was impossible for her not to be astonished. Junior brother, please wait. Louis noticed Li Lingtian had continued walking forward and quickly ran towards Li Lingtian with a smile on her face, bearing a hint of slyness. She had a smile that could topple a city. Another smile from her would topple an entire country. Within the forest, upon a small hill, Li Lingtian sat in a cave with his eyes closed and knees crossed, using his full power to heal his wounds. Meanwhile, Louis also sat down to meditate and rest. Li Lingtian had originally planned to heal his wounds and cultivate alone, but Louis had offered to protect him. Left with no choice, Li Lingtian accepted her offer. Having this beauty beside him was a blessing to his eyes. However, he could not concentrate since it was a dangerous place. As the heaven and earth reincarnation circulated, Li Lingtian placed a great spirit pill into his mouth. His injuries from the shockwave quickly healed as the pill started to refine. As expected of the powerful sacred healing medicine, his injuries and true qi had completely recovered after only an hour. If I don't use this green onyx fruit now, when else would I use it? Li Lingtian thought as he held the green onyx fruit. He then quickly bit into it and finished it with a few bites. It was almost as if he was doing something righteous. Lu Yi, who had just finished cultivating, could not hold in her laughter after seeing Li Lingtian. This junior brother was hilarious to her. This young man, at 15 years old, was already a Tier 9 warrior. He might even be a Grade 4 great apothecary. She did not expect him to be this amusing. The look on his face when he ate the green onyx fruit was simply hilarious. MMHM. Li Lingtian was a bit shocked when he noticed Lu Yi was laughing at him. It was only then he realized that he indeed looked quite funny. Though, at the end of the day it was only a green onyx fruit and nothing more. However, he could not be bothered by Lu Yi at this moment. The power of the green onyx fruit was spreading quickly within his body. Its astonishing power and spiritual qi was rushing towards his meridians. As the heaven and earth reincarnation circulated continuously, it turned the green onyx fruit's power and spiritual qi into true qi. His true qi had now started to change. It became even more intense, almost as if it had an actual form. After half an hour, Li Lingtian's whole body was covered in sweat and he had a pained expression. Tier 9 warrior, break through it! Li Lingtian shouted as the true qi from his entire body rushed towards the warrior spirit boundaries. At this moment, the powerful true qi successfully broke the warrior spirit boundaries and his true qi started to quickly take an actual form. Strands of true qi circulated in his dantian and meridians, which eventually flowed into his dantian. The immemorial ice crystal and fire dragon's heart also received more nourishment. Li Lingtian clearly felt that his connection to the immemorial ice crystal and fire dragon's heart had gotten stronger. This meant that as long as he reached a certain cultivation level, he could fully refine the immemorial ice crystal and fire dragon's heart. When that happens, his cultivation level would increase by leaps and bounds. A strong essence spread throughout the air as Lu Yi showed a surprised expression. Although she knew that the green onyx fruit had a high chance of enabling him to become a warrior spirit, she could not believe that Li Lingtian could cultivate this quickly. It only took him half an hour to enter the warrior spirit realm. Absorb! Li Lingtian tightened both of his fists as the essence in the cave quickly rushed towards him. Eventually, it turned into essential qi which entered Li Lingtian's meridian and flowed into his dantian. Congratulations on reaching the warrior spirit realm, junior brother. You have surely become stronger. Lu Yi looked at Li Lingtian as he opened his eyes. His clear eyes were as bright as the stars in the night sky. He became even more attractive, and Li Yi could not help but smile. Senior sister Lu is already a Tier 6 warrior spirit, while I've only just entered the warrior spirit realm, Li Lingtian said as he stood up. He felt like his entire body was filled with an explosive power which had him feeling full of confidence. The warrior spirit realm and warrior realm were on completely different levels. Not only had his true qi become even purer, but it had also increased tremendously. He would be able to master even more skills after some practice. Now that Li Lingtian was in the warrior spirit realm, he could surely kill Su Tian, who was a Tier 8 warrior spirit that specialized in the divine sword, without much effort if they were to face each other again. Previously, he had had to use a sneak attack to kill Su Tian. Last time, Li Lingtian had to descend from the sky as he displayed the vast obscure extermination, relying on its great force to injure Su Tian. Otherwise, he would not have been able to use his Ice Vitality Divine Fist to kill Su Tian. I'm older than you. Besides junior brother, you were able to kill Su Tian, who was a Tier 8 warrior spirit, when you were only a Tier 9 warrior. Now that you're in the warrior spirit realm, you don't need to worry much if you have to go against any strong warrior spirit. Louis showed a rarely seen smile on her petite face, which was usually cold and expressionless. It was a smile that could topple an entire city. Li Lingtian was shaken by her gentle look. His heart pounded continuously, and he did not dare take another look at Louis. For a moment, he felt really awkward and embarrassed. He had been a human for both of his lives, and yet he still felt embarrassed in front of her. Chapter 41 Chapter 41 Second Prince Tianwuji. Chapter 41 Second Prince Tianwuji. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. By the way, senior sister, I'm going out tomorrow to look for treasure. What are your plans? Being accompanied by a lady is not a good thing. Besides, this lady is a disciple from the Misty Pavilion, and my Sky Cloud sect does not have a good relationship with them. Li Lingtian thought. This was a world where only powerhouses are respected. Not to mention people from different sects, even if they were from the same sect, they would still kill each other without hesitation. I'm going to go search for others from the same sect tomorrow. Louis was stunned for a moment, and her alert eyes were filled with curiosity. This young man was definitely different from the others. Other warriors would have surely wanted to be accompanied by such a beauty. In the Misty Pavilion, countless geniuses would want to get close to a beauty like her, but it was as hard as ascending to the sky. However, she had not expected that he would hint that she should leave instead. Louis felt a sudden sadness in her heart, which was probably due to the fact that she was high above the rest and was accustomed to always being treated well. She was not used to this sudden change in treatment. They did not talk that night, as Li Lingtian was meditating to cultivate a stable state. Now that he had achieved the warrior spirit realm, there were great changes within his body. Not only were the fire dragon's heart and immemorial ice crystal inside his dantian more stable than before, but there was also the hint of another presence in his dantian. Although the presence was weak, it was there. Earth Path True Chi, is it an Earth Path warrior soul? Li Lingtian started to check carefully, and his expressions kept changing with his confusion. This True Chi was definitely the True Chi of an Earth Path warrior soul. He had just become a warrior spirit, and now he had acquired another type of warrior soul. How could he not be shocked? If he were to continue breaking through the realms, he may eventually have an all-round warrior soul. In this divine martial continent, the type of warrior soul was decided at birth. If someone had two types of warrior souls, they would truly be a genius. Even if he had two types of warrior souls, one would be the main while the other would be the support, it was impossible for both types to be balanced. He had not expected to acquire another type of warrior soul right after his breakthrough. If this news were to be spread, the divine martial continent would surely be shaken. This must have been caused by the heaven and earth reincarnation. Though Li Lingtian was unsure, it could only be attributed to the heaven and earth reincarnation. The heaven and earth reincarnation was, originally, not a technique from the divine martial continent, but a sacred technique that transcended the level of gods. There are 5 elements of heaven and earth. When the 5 elements are in balance, heaven and earth will be formed. Now that Li Lingtian had figured out this riddle, he displayed the heaven and earth reincarnation again. The golden words formed in his head started to combine and became a complete technique. When the 5 elements are balanced, oh God, shouldn't it be impossible to cultivate all of the 5 elements? Li Lingtian was stunned. He had already obtained the Earth Path Warrior Soul, Fire Path Warrior Soul, and Ice Path Warrior Soul. Though water was gentle while ice was rigid, they shared the same source. This meant that Li Lingtian was originally a Water Path Warrior Soul. This meant that out of the 5 elements of warrior souls, Li Lingtian had already obtained 3 elements. As long as he can cultivate the wood path and metal path, he would obtain a total of 5 elements. When all 5 elements were obtained, heaven and earth would be balanced. His cultivation speed would be godlike, and he would obtain fearsome power. By then, he would be way stronger than what warriors from the same tier could ever imagine. One type of warrior soul would be one type of power, while 5 types of warrior souls would be 5 different types of powers. It would not be as simple as 1 + 1 = 2 once achieved. Once he obtained all 5 elements, he could ignore the main 5 elements of this world. This was because if an opponent was a fire path, he could go against them with a water path warrior soul. If his opponent was a metal path, he could go against them with a wood path warrior soul, as metal was weak to wood. Li Lingtian would have a warrior soul that could go against his opponents regardless of the type of warrior soul they had. Not only would he have a warrior soul that was strong against his opponent, he could also use his 4 other warrior souls as support against his opponents, which would make him extremely powerful. When Li Lingtian thought of this, he felt very excited. He was already really powerful with just the ice and fire warrior souls. If he had all 5 elements of warrior souls, he would be invincible. If Li Lingtian wanted to obtain another 2 types of warrior spirits, he would need to increase his cultivation level to Warrior King and then Warrior Ascendant. Only when he has achieved Warrior Ascendant would he acquire a total of 5 elements. However, this was only his speculation. He still did not know if reality would be the same as his assumptions. Regardless, one thing that could be confirmed was that he would only obtain another warrior soul when his cultivation level increases. After that, Li Lingtian started to focus on cultivating. As long as he continued to work hard, he would have a bright future. Naturally, he could not cultivate his skills in such a place. Besides, Louis was still there, and he could not reveal any of his secrets to her. The next day, Li Lingtian left the cave. He did not bother Louis as he saw that she was still meditating and left immediately. Li Lingtian flew towards the north in a flash. Now that Li Lingtian was in the warrior spirit realm, he felt more confident. As long as it was not someone who was a top-level super genius, he could completely ignore them. On a huge lake, there were hundreds of warriors repeatedly attacking a strong demonic beast. 2. Roar. Roar. 2. A huge sky-splitting roar, followed by countless blasting and explosion sounds, caused water from the lake to explode towards the sky. The noises from these happenings were truly fearsome. Quick, don't show any mercy. Once this demonic beast is killed, we'll split the ingredients and medicinal supplies that we can obtain from it. A warrior, who was a Tier 9 warrior spirit, shouted. He continued waving the premium spiritual equipment in his hand, while fierce attacks bombarded the demonic beast like a thunderstorm. This demonic beast was around 98 feet tall, its huge body similar to a small mountain. There were hundreds of warrior spirit-tiered warriors bombarding it with formidable attacks, but none of them managed to make a fatal blow on this demonic beast. Tier 4, this is a Tier 4 pseudo-dragon beast. 10 miles away from the lake, Li Lingtian stopped and glanced with his divine mindfulness. Now that he had achieved the warrior spirit realm, his divine mindfulness could be used from as far as 30 miles away. From his divine mindfulness, he saw a 98 feet tall demonic beast which was like a small mountain. Li Lingtian was very familiar with this demonic beast. It was almost the same as the dragon from his past life. However, this beast was a pseudo-dragon beast, which meant that although it only had a hint of dragon's blood, it was not a real dragon. It's as strong as a warrior ascendant powerhouse. They're really looking for death. Li Lingtian observed the warriors and pseudo-dragon beast from afar using his divine mindfulness, and then looked for a hidden spot to meditate and rest. Only after those warriors stopped would he act. F***ck, there are quite a lot of people who want to be hunters. While Li Lingtian sat with his knees crossed and meditated, he used his divine mindfulness to check the surroundings for a moment. He discovered a few people who had carefully hidden their presence. They also did not have a weak cultivation level and were at least a Tier 7 warrior spirit or higher. Boom! 2-2. Boom! 2-2. Roar! Roar! 2. Loud noises from explosives and roars from the beast sounded continuously. Meanwhile, as the pseudo-dragon beast swung its huge tail, countless warriors were suddenly smashed into pieces, and blood rained the sky. Trash, a bunch of trash, a cold voice said. Suddenly, a dashing figure jumped out and in a blink of an eye, he had arrived above the pseudo-dragon beast. A young warrior in a blue shirt, who radiated a strong presence, could be seen. He looked down at the warriors who were constantly attacking the pseudo-dragon beast with a proud stance. Tianjin Empire, Tian Wuji. Tier 2 Warrior King. Tianjin Empire, Second Prince, Tian Wuji. Countless people knew about this youth, who was standing in the air with his weapon. All of them were extremely shocked. He was one of the strongest people of all time. Obey my commands, and I shall reward those who help me capture this pseudo-dragon beast. Tian Wuji looked down at the huge pseudo-dragon beast, his face filled with greed. This is a Tier 4 demonic beast with really strong offensive and defensive abilities. It would surely be a killer weapon if used in the army. What relationship does the Tianjin Empire have with my Southern Empire? Such ignorance. In your dreams. It's not like this pseudo-dragon beast is owned by the Tianjin Empire. If you want to capture it, then capture it yourself. I want to slay it. Let's take action and slay this pseudo-dragon beast. Ingredients from a Tier 4 are really rare. That's right, don't listen to him. 2-2. For a moment, though countless warriors shouted loudly, their arms never stopped. They attacked the pseudo-dragon beast together with all their strength. In the distance, Li Lingtian frowned. He had a pained expression and his eyes became dull, as if he had just received a great mental attack. What on earth is trying to direct my soul? Li Lingtian said to himself. The expression on his face grew even more pained. His body then suddenly shot out and went towards the north quickly. Chapter 42 Chapter 42 Nine Yang Sacred Fire. Chapter 42 Nine Yang Sacred Fire. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Die. 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 All of you, just die. As Li Lingtian ran recklessly along the way, warriors who had sensed that he was only a Tier 1 warrior spirit chased after Li Lingtian with the malicious intent of stealing from him. However, facing Li Lingtian, they were all killed in a single blow. They did not have the slightest of strength to fight against him. Even the warrior who was a Tier 8 warrior spirit super genius was killed in a punch. Ice Vitality Divine Fist, 300-mile frost. Whoosh. Poof. A Tier 9 warrior spirit peak genius was crushed into pieces by Li Lingtian's Ice Vitality Divine Fist. The backlash caused Li Lingtian to spew out blood. This was the 5th time that he had used the Ice Vitality Divine Fist, causing him to have serious internal injuries. In spite of that, he could not stop himself. Li Lingtian was being controlled by a mysterious presence. It controlled him to run towards the north without stop, killing everyone along the way, regardless if they were gods or demons. Tier 2 Warrior Spirit Breakthrough. After the countless fights and injuries, continuous usage of 10,000 spirit pill for healing and constant swallowing of spirit binding pills allowed Li Lingtian to break through and become a Tier 2 warrior spirit within a day. 1 day. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days had gone by and a month soon passed. Li Lingtian's clothes were covered in bloodstains and his face was pale. However, He had already managed to raise his cultivation level to a Tier 3 warrior spirit. In his journey, Li Lingtian had killed countless strong demonic beasts and warriors, and his storage sack was filled with pills. The more Li Lingtian flew towards the north, the clearer he felt the presence's attraction. Li Lingtian also had a strong feeling that the presence was something familiar. Yet, there was still a slight feeling of fear and strangeness regarding this familiar presence. On this day, Li Lingtian reached the front of a huge mountain. The presence's attraction in his heart had already reached its peak. He knew that whatever that was leading him was close by. While looking at this mountain that reached the clouds, Li Lingtian felt a strong presence. He felt extremely shocked that there was such a strong presence in this mountain. "Who are you? Show yourself!" Li Lingtian shouted loudly. The feeling of attraction stopped here. This type of attraction had caused him to feel a sense of fear. "I've been waiting for you for a long time. It has been an entire 3,000 reincarnations. 3,000 reincarnations, not bad. You're not as strong as I expected, but you're not considered trash." "Sigh, you're not considered trash, because you're worse than trash. 35 years, and you're still just a mere ant. I feel disappointed." A husky voice sounded in the air. However, rather than saying it sounded in the air, it actually projected itself in Li Lingtian's mind. This voice was talking to itself while Li Lingtian stared into the air in horror as if he just saw a ghost. In his eyes, he saw that the tall mountain flew up and smashed onto him mercilessly. "Who the hell are you? Stop playing with me." Li Lingtian was already numbed. He himself was the only one in this world who knew that he could reincarnate. He had spent 20 years in his past life, while he is 15 years old in his current life, which makes it an exact 35 years. Li Lingtian did not expect that it would know about his secret that clearly, and it even said that he was worse than trash. Li Lingtian was confused by its inexplicable word. "I'm you and you're me. But it can only be said that I'm more unfortunate. My reincarnation is worse than trash." "Wham! 2," the husky voice said calmly. Then, the huge mountain came crashing down from the sky. Li Lingtian glanced at the mountain for a moment, and a strong wind tore his body, causing him to be covered in blood. Li Lingtian did not have a single thought about resisting this huge mountain. Resistance would be futile. Not to mention a warrior spirit, even a warrior ascendant or warrior emperor would be crushed into shreds when facing such a huge mountain. A sky-splitting noise sounded as the huge mountain crushed onto the ground mercilessly. Li Lingtian disappeared under the huge mountain like an ant. There was not a hint of a presence or sounds anymore from the mountain. Under the huge mountain, it was a totally different world. Li Lingtian was now in a luxurious palace that had an ancient charm, yet its vicissitude and solemn atmosphere made him uncomfortable. Li Lingtia spurted out some blood. The blow from the mountain just now was actually just an illusion, and then he ended up here mysteriously. In the palace, there was a shadow floating above the supreme throne. Its empty eyes were staring at Li Lingtian. Facing those eyes, Li Lingtian felt as if it could see through everything and nothing could be hidden from them. Such a strong spiritual force. Did this shadow lead me here? This seems unrealistic. Li Lingtian was shocked. He could not care about the bloodstains on the corner of his mouth. His eyes were fixed upon that shadow without flinching. At this point, it was already too late for him to be afraid. "You're not afraid of death," the shadow said calmly. It had a husky voice which was the same as the voice before. This had confirmed Li Lingtian's thought that it was this shadow that led him here. Afraid of death? What a joke. I've already died once, so it doesn't matter even if I die once more. You're definitely not afraid of death, because you've already died 3,000 times. Although you're a little trash, but at least you're confident. Do you want to become a supreme existence? The shadow's eyes continued staring at Lilingtian. To a warrior, what it said was definitely tempting. Who would not want to become a supreme existence? However, Lilingtian had to disappoint it as his face showed a trace of disdain. If you could become a supreme existence, then why are you still here? Lilingtian glanced at the shadow with disdain. He had already been a human for 2 lives, so he naturally understood the situation now. This shadow definitely had something to ask for. Lilingtian was not a 3-year-old child and would not be fooled. Even if he wanted to become a strong warrior, he could just rely on his own efforts. He would not need to give in to this shadow's temptation. I'll kill you! The shadow glanced at Lilingtian. After hearing his words, it was suddenly angered. At this point, Lilingtian felt as if death was close. Suddenly, Lilingtian was in an endless purgatory of blazing flames. The whole world was in flames. The bottomless flaming abyss in the fire dragon cave seemed insignificant when compared to here. I'm the 9 lives Divine Lord. If not for the immemorial ice crystal, I would have been the Divine Emperor. Now, I'll let you taste the power of the 9 yang sacred fire. Let's see how long your flaming sacred body can last, and if you'll still be stubborn after this. The shadow said loudly. Although its voice sounded calm, it was not hard to realize its seething anger, while it looked at Lilingtian with eyes filled with rage. Ha! I have the flaming sacred body. Don't think that it'll be easy to bum me to death. F***CKU. Where the hell did you get the 9 yang sacred fire? 2. Let me out of here. 2. Lilingtian scolded loudly. His whole body was almost roasted in this sea of flames. Even though he had been using both the sacred fire body and fire dragon's heart, he still could resist this mysterious flame. I myself am the 9 lives Divine Lord. Sigh, if not for the immemorial ice crystal, I would have definitely become the Divine Emperor in 300,000 years. Your flaming sacred body was actually mine, such a waste. I even fulfilled you before I turned into dust. The shadow said calmly with a husky and withered voice. It then reminisces the times when it was one of the most powerful beings in the divine realm who shocked the divine realm. It did not expect to be weakened by the immemorial ice crystal. Otherwise, it would have become a divine emperor-like existence. As time went by, Lilingtian's clothes had all been burned and his body had turned into a ball of blazing fire. His eyes were also filled with a raging fire. Now Lilingtian had no skin, no bones, and was just a man whose whole body was covered in flames. Immemorial ice crystal, refine. The pain on his body, and even the mental pain, had become completely numb to Lilingtian. No one could imagine the pain that he was suffering. Lilingtian, who had the flaming sacred body, was now utterly covered in flames. However, within the blazing flames, a deep blue ice crystal was constantly resisting the flames from refining. The fire dragon's heart had long been melted away by the flames. The fire dragon's heart was only the essence of a fire dragon. Although it was powerful, it was nothing compared to this so-called 9 yang sacred fire. Yes, that's it. As long as you can refine the immemorial ice crystal, haha, you would have a promising future. The shadow stared at Lilingtian constantly. Seeing the immemorial ice crystal in Lilingtian's body, it was not sure whether it was angry or excited. However, when Lilingtian screamed, it could not help but feel excited. Boom! 2! Boom! 2! Within the flames, the immemorial ice crystal continued to resist the 9 yang sacred fire from refining. After some time, there was finally a loud explosion, and the immemorial ice crystal turned into pieces as it melted into the 9 yang sacred fire. Suddenly, the 9 yang sacred fire weakened, as if it was going to disappear any time. Yet at this moment, the 9 yang sacred fire became a mixture of red and blue as the immemorial ice crystal melted. Its color could not be differentiated. Chapter 43 Chapter 43 Nine Young Sacred Lord of the Past Life. Chapter 43 Nine Young Sacred Lord of the Past Life. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Wham! The integration of the immemorial ice crystal and nine yang sacred fire produced a terrifying chi. As the two extremes came into blows, the flame blew up even more. It was as if oil was poured on top of a fire. However, the flame, which carried an element of extreme chill, could not be differentiated as flame or frost. The flame released a chilling sensation, yet it was not frost, because this ice was burning at the same time. Ha 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 ha, success! Tvi finally succeeded. There you have it, the coexistence of ice and fire, for you. I am finally reborn after 3,000 reincarnations. My disappearance will accomplish my future. Tremble at my feet, world. The surreal figure let out a deranged laugh while it looked at the flame. In a flash, the surreal figure transformed into a streak of flames before it disappeared into the frigid flame beside Li Lingtian. Suddenly, Li Lingtian received shocking information from his brain, and he became afraid. Although this surreal figure was only a phantom without an entity, it was all-powerful. Li Lingtian would not stand a chance to resist if it were to seize and house his body. However, he could not wrap his head around the fact that this surreal figure had disappeared in perpetuity and left behind only information that was transferred straight to his mind. Retrieve. Retrieve. I said retrieve. Nevertheless, this situation was out of his hands at this point. He was without a body and was nothing but a ball of flame. He had to absorb the frigid flame to reconstruct his body. Swish, 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 swish. With the wind howling in the background, Li Lingtian's flaming frame gradually evolved into an entity. He looked no different from before, but he seemed easier on the eyes. Dressed in satin skin that even a woman would be envious of, his outer flesh was without a flaw while inside his body rested an endless flaming chi. I am a powerhouse of the upper world, also known as Nine Yang Sacred Lord. During my cultivation, the descending immemorial ice crystal had crippled my cultivation level. I unleashed a forbidden spell to create this dimension as I diminished to nothing. I then worked out the absolute sacred technique that allowed ice and fire to coexist. The heaven and earth reincarnation of heaven's scriptures has been passed down since ancient times, so please proceed with caution. Not only are you a third of my soul, but the flaming sacred body of this divine martial continent also constitutes a third of my soul. 3,000 reincarnations have passed and this will be the last. The entire divine martial continent would have disappeared if you didn't show up. With 3,000 reincarnations gone, I'm slowly losing my memory. Everything now rests in your hands. I am Nine Yang Sacred Lord, and you are my reincarnation. Don't embarrass us. The inner vital of the pseudo-dragon beast is one of the keys to opening the divine dragon palace. Keep safe. As rows of information played in his mind, his head became clearer and sharper than before. It took half an hour before Li Lingtian opened his eyes. He finally understood all that had happened. He, in the 21st century, was one-third of the soul while the Li Lingtian in divine martial continent was also one-third of the soul. Together with the surreal figure's soul, he was now one complete soul. So I'm the reincarnation of Nine Yang Sacred Lord. I am Nine Yang Sacred Lord, Li Lingtian murmured under his breath. Everything, including the palace, then vanished before his eyes, leaving only darkness behind. There really is a God in this world and I am one of them. Li Lingtian examined his body and soon found himself at a loss for words. He started to look around everywhere. He was disappointed. The heaven and earth conflagration under the 9 yang sacred fire could even melt the powerful onyx equipment, imperial equipment, and divine equipment, let alone a storage sack. F*ck this, it's a lost cause. Do I have to run naked? Li Lingtian took a look around and realized that the flaming world in which he had experienced before was only 10,000 square feet in size. The ground was pitch black, without a speck of dust. Needless to say, his storage sack was nowhere in sight. Putting the medicinal supply, inner vitals, or the cloud startling sword, a peerless spiritual equipment aside, he should be left with a set of clothes at least. Instead, he was stark naked from head to toe, without a single hair on his body. Even if he unleashed Ice Vitality Divine Fist and Flaming Divine Fist to take care of some low-level warriors, he could not possibly go into battle bare. I've advanced to another tier. I'm a Tier 4 warrior spirit now. As he sensed the changes within him, Li Lingtian discovered that he had reached Tier 4 in warrior spirit state. Moreover, the energy in his body was purer by multiple folds. Flaming Divine Fist. Bam! With Flaming Divine Fist at his fingertips, he pulled a punch. A 3-yard-length Flaming Divine Fist was suddenly slammed onto the ground, exploding the ground into a huge dark pit. Conception. The Flaming Divine Fist has been unleashed to a conception-like degree. There were no words to describe the shock he was in. He had climbed up a tier after going through a state of nirvana which gave him better control of his flaming skills. His Flaming Divine Fist had reached conception, the legendary conception. Ice Vitality Divine Fist, 300-mile frost. Swoosh! A sparkling and translucent glacier extended within the 1,000-yard radius. As Li Lingtian stood within this glacier, he could sense its terrifying force. Following a punch, the glacier was crushed into bits like a shattered mirror. With the immemorial ice crystal and fire dragon's heart finally in the clear and integrated into his body, he saw an increase in his ability as well as a more domineering constitution. First things first, I should get out of here. He lay out a plan at that thought. He could look for a person or two once he got out and freeze his opponent with a strike of Ice Vitality Divine Fist. His problem would then be solved by seizing the victim's storage sack and clothes. Li Lingtian searched around the palace, but he could not find an exit because a mountain was over it. Well, I'll be a pangolin for once. With a mountain on top in mind, Li Lingtian had to dig a tunnel out of there. Once he detected a direction, Li Lingtian smashed a fist of Heaven Falls Earth Rends and the palace was suddenly in shambles. Using both his hands, he then began to dig out a tunnel way. Time went on day by day, and if he had to put his finger on it, he could have been excavating for 2 weeks. In other words, a month had passed in Hidden Dragon Isle. Outside the mountain, a chain of explosions ensued. Qin Feng, hand over the onyx equipment, purple-green sword, and I'll spare your life, a Tier 9 warrior spirit young man exclaimed. With a premium spiritual equipment that flickered with ferocious qi in his hand, the young man darted a cold stare at the youth before him. Yang Hao, who the hell do you think you are? I'm holding a mediocre onyx equipment right here, come take it if you can. Qin Feng sneered in response. A mediocre onyx equipment itself was a revering existence. Many warrior spirit powerhouses did not even possess a spiritual equipment, yet he had managed to uncover an onyx equipment. Although it was only a mediocre onyx equipment, it still bore greater strength than a peerless spiritual equipment. As there were also 7 to 8 Tier 3 and 4 warrior spirits eyeing him covetously from afar, he found himself in a tight spot. Then die. The onyx equipment will be ours once you're dead. Strike now. At the wave of Yang Hao's arm, all the warriors made their move. For the sake of an onyx equipment, they struck an attack towards Qin Feng, and at that moment, the earth began to shake. Why the F*ck did you hit me? Following the sounds of shrieking wails, Qin Feng exterminated them one after another. It was unknown who had the storage sack at this point, but whoever was in possession of it was bound to be hit with the most powerful attack. In that brief moment, only 3 out of the 20 warrior spirits were left on the scene. 1 Tier 7 and 2 Tier 9 warrior spirit. Yang Hao, I know where you stand in strength. Hand over the purple-green sword and both of us will spare your life. Zhou Tian turned his gaze to Yang Hao while he sent a signal to his junior brother beside him. There was no issue in taking down Yang Hao if the two of them joined forces. With the trio engaging in a two-pronged attack, a major battle was forthcoming. Senior sister, who do you think will end up with the purple-green sword? In the distance, 3 women watched the fight for the onyx equipment in the mountain. However, even after the deaths of multiple warriors, they showed no signs of making a move. Hee, none of them will get their hands on the onyx equipment, it belongs to our misty pavilion. With her eyes fixated afar, Zhou Qingqing laughed playfully. She would make her strike once the trio had sustained injury. She was originally a Tier 9 peak warrior spirit, but she had managed to break through to Tier 1 warrior king a month after her entry. Bam! Wham! Tui! Tui! Ah! The moment the trio engaged in a huge battle, the Tier 7 warrior spirit met his fate while the 2 Tier 9 warrior spirits spat out blood simultaneously. Both of them had sustained severe injury. Senior sister, do we jump in now? Wait a minute, it'll be easier later. With 1 warrior spirit down and 2 deeply wounded, Zhou Qingqing knew the remaining 2 would breathe their last if she were to wait a little longer. Phew! Just on the mountainside, Li Lingtian took in the breath of fresh air. He was finally out after digging through a tunnel for 2 weeks. Chapter 44, Chapter 44, Embarrassed. Chapter 44, Embarrassed. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Someone's in battle. Ger, are they tired of living? Li Lingtian turned his gaze to the 2 wounded warriors whose lives were hanging by a thread. He was overjoyed to be in such circumstances as he could simply eliminate those 2 warriors and take their clothes off them. Haha, Zhou Tian, I'll be leaving first. Having said that, a jade slip appeared the moment Yang Hao extended his arm. The jade slip was clouded in spiritual qi. Major maneuver spell. Major maneuver spell. Zhou Tian gasped in surprise. At the same time but at a distance away, Zhou Qingqing too cried out with a face of regret. This major maneuver spell was capable of shifting a person to a great distance, and if so, he could no longer be pursued. Although Li Lingtian was equally shocked, this major maneuver spell intrigued him. With that, he circulated his body of true qi to unleash his Ice Vitality Divine Fist. Ice Vitality Divine Fist, 300-mile frost. After letting out a gentle shout, a glacier emerged within a 1,000-yard radius at the flicker of his body. Yang Hao and Zhou Tian were now trapped in this glacier, frozen stiff as ice sculptures. Even though Yang Hao was on the verge of unleashing the major maneuver spell, fear was cemented on his face. Shameless. The 3 women afar were shocked that a powerful master was lurking amongst them there. Even as a warrior king, Zhou Qingqing's divine mindfulness could not detect him. However, the 3 women's faces soon flushed red as a naked young man appeared out of thin air and submerged into the glacier. Clang! The glacier shattered to pieces at the sound of a huge explosion. With Yang Hao and Zhou Tian gone, Li Lingtian quickly found a set of clothes and wore it on his body. *CK this is very embarrassing. Li Lingtian's expression hardened after he put on some clothes because he realized that 3 women were peering from a distance. They must have seen him in his birthday suit. His reputation was now ruined. Ruined! As soon as he said that, Li Lingtian cleared many warriors' storage sacks in a hurry. Since he was poverty-stricken and did not have a penny to his name, he was not one to waste these storage sacks. Senior sister, I don't want the onyx equipment anymore. Let's go, a gorgeous woman beside Zhou Qingqing said before looking the other way. She did not have the nerve to gaze afar. Could that young man have a weird fetish in fighting without clothes? What a pity, he seemed to be a lovely man. He's only a Tier 4 warrior spirit. Wait for me, I'll retrieve the onyx equipment. Zhou Qingqing too was blushing, but she forced the image to the back of her mind at the thought of the onyx equipment. Judging by the looks of her junior sister, she knew she was feeling shy. Senior sister, let it be. He's junior brother Li Lingtian from Sky Dragon Empire, Lui muttered in a soft voice. Her face turned boiling hot when she connected the dots between this junior brother to the memory of both of them spending a night in a cave. Sky Cloud Sex Li Lingtian. Zhou Qingqing and the other junior sister cried out in alarm. Before entering the hidden Dragon Isle, Li Lingtian was persuaded to take apprenticeship under a warrior ascendant, and he had even competed against the same warrior ascendant in a battle of flaming forces. Swoosh! As a piercing sound cut through the air, a figure appeared before the trio. With fears written all over their faces, the trio took a step back in unison. Even Zhou Qingqing, who was a warrior king, fell back a step. This young man had fought au natural. If the circumstances were the same, they would not be able to face him. Senior sisters. Deep down, Li Lingtian smiled bitterly as his earlier actions were exposed to these three young girls. If he were to leave right away, news of him tending to run around naked would spread like wildfire. Shameless, the trio exclaimed. Li Lingtian was taken aback. He had quite a luck in finding himself in these situations. Senior sisters, you've misunderstood. I came across some issues during cultivation and my storage sack was burned to dust. Do you think I like to have it this way? Li Lingtian pointed at his apparel. It was obvious that the clothes were one size larger and did not fit him. He did not even have any usable weapons on him. Huh? Junior brotherly, your cultivation. I see. After spending a night with Li Lingtian, Lui realized that he was not as deplorable as she had imagined. Taking another glance at Li Lingtian's cultivation level, she could not help but believe his words due to his advancement from Tier 1 to Tier 4 warrior spirit state. Lui chuckled, putting Li Lingtian in an awkward position. Senior sister, junior brother Li's right. He cultivates firepath technique. I've personally witnessed junior brother Li breaking through a while ago and now he's a Tier 4 warrior spirit. Something must have happened during his cultivation. Pleased to find Li Lingtian embarrassed, Lui then turned to explain to Zhou Qingqing. Zhou Qingqing could tell that something strange was going on with Li Lingtian's clothes. Besides, his clothes did not fit him. For a moment, the three women burst into giggles while Li Lingtian stood there blankly, not knowing whether he should lash out. If there's nothing else, I shall take my leave now, Li Lingtian spoke before he turned around in an attempt to leave. However, he was called back by Zhou Qingqing. Junior brother Li, where do you plan on going? Zhou Qingqing asked in a sweet voice. The more allies they had in Hidden Dragon Isle, the stronger the forces. Although the treasures divided would be less, they would feel much safer. It's still early, so I'm going to take a stroll around or else my trip here will be in vain. Li Lingtian spread his palms out helplessly. Since he had lost everything, he had to venture out in search of treasures or he would suffer double losses. There appears to be a strange phenomenon happening in Hidden Dragon Isle. Some treasures might have emerged, why don't we join forces? Zhou Qingqing gave out a faint smile. Considering that the trio's combined strength was not enough and they required new blood, Li Lingtian made a great choice. 1 foot 11 inches be leaving. I can't face you after you've seen me naked. With that, Li Lingtian circulated his breeze technique, and before the trio could say anything more, he had disappeared into the forest. This guy. Gazing at the direction Li Lingtian left in, Lu Yi felt a sense of loss. However, the thought of Li Lingtian in a fix left her bursting out in laughter. Li Lingtian launched his breeze technique to its summit. In a second, he was already dozens of miles away. The phenomenon Zhou Qingqing was referring to was most likely Divine Dragon Palace. The way Nine Yang's Sacred Lord described Divine Dragon Palace made it sound like it was dangerous, but what he really meant was that there were treasures in there too. The fourth-tier pseudo-dragon beast's inner vital was key to enter Divine Dragon Palace. Hence, his priority was to find the Prince of Tianjin Empire, who possessed the pseudo-dragon beast. Subduing the pseudo-dragon beast was out of the question, but killing the beast was possible by teaming up with more warriors. Now that he was out, there was still a lot on the list to take care of before he could advance to Divine Dragon Palace. Otherwise, he would meet his end if he were to confront that many super powerhouses there. The sky gradually darkened as he dashed through hundreds of yards. So, Li Lingtian sought out a concealed cave and took shelter in it before sitting in meditation for a rest. Who would have thought? Sitting with his legs crossed, Li Lingtian still found it bizarre as his mind played back the events from a few days ago. He had somehow transmigrated over and realized that he was only a soul. After 3,000 reincarnations, he would have disappeared from the face of the earth if the three souls did not meet. He would probably have suffered a violent death in his former 21st century past, hence he thanked his lucky stars that the souls merged in time. The only downside was that all of his memories were missing. All that was left were his memory of his 21st century past and this life. However, it was all good. He could kick-start his life anew. With the heaven and earth reincarnation from the heaven scriptures, his flaming sacred body, ice vitality warrior soul, and the souls of three, alongside his 21st century wisdom, he could simply pick himself back up. Now I should straighten up. Although I have the Nine Yang sacred fire, as well as the immemorial ice crystal and fire dragon's heart taken care of, I have yet to adjust to it, Li Lingtian mumbled to himself. With that, he began to cultivate with full energy. The immemorial ice crystal and fire dragon's heart were no longer of concern. Now that he was a Tier 4 warrior spirit equipped with the ever-omnipotent ice vitality warrior soul and flaming sacred body, he was no longer at risk amid warrior spirit powerhouses. He mainly had to watch out for warrior king masters. Nevertheless, his ice vitality divine fist and flaming divine fist had made great stride. They released a powerful drive upon eruption, deserving the title as one of his killer moves. Chapter 45 Chapter 45 Divine Dragon Palace. Chapter 45 Divine Dragon Palace. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Those who could operate an airship in Hidden Dragon Isle were not one to mess with. It's His Highness the Second Prince. Yao Tianxiong frowned at the sight of the airship. The arrival of more powerhouses here would turn up the heat in the competition. With Tian Wuji joining in, it would be more challenging to contend. Although they were super geniuses of Tianjin Empire, they dared not cross the line with Tianjin Empire's prince. Yao Tianxiong, Zhou Tianjiao, you guys are one step ahead of me. How is it? Report the situation to me. With an air of haughtiness, Tian Wuji stared down at Yao Tianxiong's group in a commanding position as though he was a king on high. Assuming such a posture made many powerhouses displeased with him. We just got here so we don't really know, Zhou Tianjiao faintly replied as he hid his displeasure within. Even though he was unhappy, it was not the time nor place to act out his emotions. No one in Tianjin Empire was bold enough to defy the empire that housed countless powerhouses. Oh, you don't know. You explain the situation. Tian Wuji turned his gaze to another powerhouse. The faces of warriors beneath hardened at his demanding tone, spurring a heavy atmosphere that could be cut through with a knife. F*CKU Tian Wuji, get your *SS down here. I'll whack you until your mother can't recognize you. You're only a forsaken son who has no power in Tianjin Empire. How dare you throw your weight about in front of me? Bei Ao of the Southern Empire's 10,000 Demons sect ran his mouth out loud. As a favored son of the Southern Empire, he would not be treated as a servant. Tianjin Empire's powerhouses may be afraid of stepping on Tian Wuji's toes, but that did not include the warriors of the Southern Empire. Die! Tian Wuji was stunned, but his face was quickly clouded with animosity. As a killing intent flashed past his eyes, Tian Wuji raised his arm without warning and slammed a peerless spiritual equipment towards Bei Ao. Many warriors were in dismay as the atmosphere quivered as though it was about to tear apart. The strike of a warrior king was indeed revering. Tian Wuji had the tolerance for many things, but saying that he was not in power was his sore spot. Sure, out of the numerous princes in Tianjin Empire, he was only a forsaken son, but opening up his old wounds flipped his lid. Heavenly Demon's body break. Bei Ao looked towards the warrior king's peerless spiritual equipment with eyes of disdain. Circulating his true qi, Bei Qi turned into a 30-foot-tall demonic beast at the explosion of great demonic energy. The huge body and sturdy defense left quite a visual impact. Bam! A giant fist violently crashed onto Tian Wuji's attack. When the explosion sounded, the two attacks disappeared into a burst of forces in the air. Based on that one move, the duo's abilities were on par with one another. The attack from warrior kings left countless warrior spirits shaking in the knees. Humph, watch your back. Although he failed in his attempt, Tian Wuji did not intend to continue the battle. Plenty of powerhouses were present and his purpose was to search for treasure. Attaining this treasure would allow him to rise in power and gain control of Tianjin Empire. Swish, swish. No one uttered another word after the battle between two warrior kings had ended. From time to time, whistling noises passed through the sky as numerous powerhouses bolted over. Those who were able to make it here were warrior spirit powerhouses and disciples of Supersect. There were also many warrior kings. Krung! An omnipotent energy soared skyward from the peaceful lake, which caused the entire lake to tremble and oppressed over 1,000 powerhouses. This is the 8th time. This astounding energy exploded in the air before it gradually disappeared. A multitude of warriors started to engage in a discussion. This energy shock had been ongoing for the 8th time, and it came up once every 2 to 3 days. This phenomenon confirmed many powerhouses' belief that an amazing treasure was present. It's the 8th time. It should come up again one more time before Divine Dragon Palace opens. I'm lucky that I made it in time. Li Lingtian quickly unleashed his motion skill before he soon arrived at a spot near the lake. As he looked at the lake, he was in shock to find that many warriors were gathered there. The number of warriors amassed surpassed 1,000, and each of them was at least a tier 5 or 6 warrior spirit. Not to mention, there were also 9 warrior king powerhouses there. A while back, Li Lingtian had flown northwest in search of Divine Dragon Palace after taking a break. While on the way, he encountered several top geniuses who also took flight in the same direction. Based on his experience, he was right on the money in terms of direction. He had eliminated demonic beasts and slaughtered blundering warrior spirits along the way. I wonder what treasure is hidden in Divine Dragon Palace. Even 9 Yang's Sacred Lord took it to heart, Li Lingtian mumbled to himself with smiling eyes. From where he was, he spotted disciples from Misty Pavilion, Green Jade Sect, Sky Cloud Sect, and Radiant Sect. The warriors from Sky Dragon Empire were, no doubt, fewer amid these masters. Even Radiant Sect and Green Jade Sect were second-rates compared to other empires. After making a note of all the powerful warriors, Li Lingtian sought out a hidden spot to meditate and rest. The Divine Dragon Palace should make an appearance when the next sign presented itself. The wait was 3 days. 3 days had passed before the calm lake churned in turbulence. Wham! Whoosh! An impressive energy soared in the sky. This time, the entire Hidden Dragon Isle shook as the lake waters towered sky-high following the energy. Many nearby warriors were swept into the lake waters, and in the blink of an eye, the mighty water pillar took the lives of these warrior spirits. Aghast, the remaining warriors withdrew to a distance in a hurry. This energy was stronger than the former 8 times. With this, Li Lingtian opened his eyes that were twinkling in excitement. The astonishing energy had blown up the lake, and it uncovered a silvery radiance in the center. Although the radiance was the size of 10 feet, it grew more brilliant by the second. Soon, the 10-foot-tall silvery radiance had expanded to 1,000 feet in circumference. In fact, it was not a radiance but a silver palace. This silver palace of 100 yards in height towered amid the lake. Given its silver exterior, it was unknown what was used to construct the palace. The palace had a pitch-black gate that was about 30 feet tall and 15 feet wide. Divine Dragon Palace has appeared. Divine Dragon Palace finally made its appearance. Silence. Everybody, think of a way to open the gate. Let's join forces, or else our wait for a century would go to waste. Many warriors bubbled over with excitement. After all, they were here, on Hidden Dragon Isle that only opened once every century, for Divine Dragon Palace. Now that Divine Dragon Palace was within reach, they had to figure out a way to get in. Wham! It was only 10 minutes later that the soaring energy and churning lake surface resumed its peacefulness. However, a demonic energy spread about as if a bomb was detonated in the air. The demonic energy had a crushing effect on countless warriors. With that said, powerhouses who were inferior to Tier 5 warrior spirits were immediately crushed to death. Appalled, the remaining warriors quickly pulled away to a distance, but to their disappointment, they found that it was impossible to make a dash outside 3 miles. What a terrifying demonic energy! This is the repression of an almighty demonic master. Hiss! Many surviving warriors stared at the repression in the air with pale faces. This repression of such omnipotent demonic energy was difficult to fend off from the outside, let alone inside Divine Dragon Palace. It's so powerful that the weak who are lower than a Tier 5 warrior spirit would be crushed to death. Under the oppression of this repression, Li Lingtian was too forced to withdraw from his cultivation. He stared at the repression in shock. This repression was almost substantial, taking the form of a heavy mist. However, the heaven and earth reincarnation in his body, as well as his powerful flaming sacred body, were unaffected by this repression. With the immemorial ice crystal and fire dragon's heart dissolved in his body, his improved constitution built up resistance towards the repression. Within his vision, he could only see 30-odd Tier 9 peak in perfection warrior spirits, 17 warrior kings, and 10-odd masters who were equipped with treasures left by the lake. Sigh. Li Lingtian could only sigh at the deaths of low-level warriors from Sky Cloud Sect and other sects in Sky Dragon Empire. With the majority under Tier 5 warrior spirits crushed to death, there were only a handful of warriors who were left. At the lakeside, the 60-odd super masters stared solemnly at Divine Dragon Palace. These masters would be the strongest existence to enter Hidden Dragon Isle. Chapter 46 Chapter 46 Onyx Equipment, Purple-Green Sword. Chapter 46 Onyx Equipment, Purple-Green Sword. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. These are all garbage. After cultivating, Li Lingtian opened the storage sacks he collected and began to make an inventory of his gain. The contents were mostly lousy pills and weapons, but there he had also found a century and 5-year-old medicinal supply along with some demonic beasts' inner vitals in there. He was no longer swayed by spiritual stones and such because he was in need of a convenient weapon. Having lost the cloud's startling sword, sky-perishing spear, and the pill tripod for pill refinery, he was now left empty-handed. What a strong spiritual chi fluctuation! An exquisite tiny sword appeared before his eyes. Assuming a blend of purple and green color, this tiny sword released a heavy spiritual chi and an oppressive force rushed toward Li Lingtian. Mediocre onyx equipment, purple-green sword. The moment his divine mindfulness forced its way into the blade, Li Lingtian received information that this weapon was an onyx equipment called purple-green sword. He could not believe that it was an onyx equipment. Who would have thought that after losing a peerless spiritual equipment, he would gain an onyx equipment in turn? A mediocre onyx equipment fared significantly better in strength compared to the spiritual equipment. Ha 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 ha! Li Lingtian burst out laughing. This made his trip to Hidden Dragon Isle worthwhile, even if he were to return with empty pockets. Not to mention, he now had a mediocre onyx equipment in hand. With this onyx equipment, the force driven by the astounding sword technique's first form, Bright Moon in Soft Breeze, would be more powerful than vast obscure extermination. Purple-green sword, refine. Following a yell, Li Lingtian gestured a few motions before he shot out a curl of his fresh blood. His blood essence then formed a bloody screen that swiftly wrapped around the purple-green sword. With this, the purple-green sword struggled to get out of the wrapper. Nevertheless, the struggle was futile in the face of Li Lingtian's amazing soul and divine mindfulness. Even a warrior king could not stack up against his divine mindfulness. Since Nine Yang's sacred lord's surreal figure was sustained by his soul and divine mindfulness, one could well imagine how powerful his divine mindfulness was. Even if Li Lingtian did not inherit much of it, warrior kings were still no match to him. Swoosh! 10 minutes later, the refining of the purple-green sword was a success. Li Lingtian extended his arm to grab a hold of the sword whilst circulating his body of true qi. Immediately, the purple-green sword enlarged to a yard in length and released a heavy stench of repression. This was the repression of a weapon, the repression of an onyx equipment. The repression released from this onyx equipment is capable of restraining Tier 2 warrior spirits and below. Li Lingtian was ecstatic over this omnipotent repression. He could even sense the fluctuating repression coming from the purple-green sword with just a gentle swing of his arm. His confidence instantly inflated. Astounding sword technique, Bright Moon in Soft Breeze. Astounding sword technique, vast obscure extermination. Astounding sword technique, 1,000 shadows of fluttering flowers. Swish swish, swish swish. Clang clang. Unable to stifle his confidence, he left the cave in a flash and brought his astounding sword technique to full play. He had already mastered the first 2 forms, but it had never crossed his mind that he could spontaneously demonstrate the 3rd form after demonstrating the preceding move. It was hard not to rejoice over the fact that after multiple failed attempts, he had eventually cultivated the 3rd form. As blade auras crisscrossed in the air, a mass of weaving blade shadows and auras ripped the atmosphere to shreds. He was more in shock to find that the atmosphere was shattering like a mirror. The air within a 10-yard radius was like pieces of broken mirror, and Li Lingtian's mind was blown at the magnificent display of force. So this is the 1,000 shadows of fluttering flowers. Li Lingtian was in awe at the presence of the shattered dimension. With an onyx equipment demonstrating the 1,000 shadows of fluttering flowers, the warrior king powerhouses will be dead, haha. The confident smile deepened on his face. The onyx equipment itself was powerful, but when matched with great skill, nobody would be able to fend off the move. Heaven falls, earth rends. Bam! After storing his purple-green sword, he circulated his body of true chi before he smashed his fist onto the ground. With Li Lingtian as the center, the ground shook and exploded into multiple cracks. The ground was flipped upside down within 100-yard radius. Ice Vitality Divine Fist. Hold. At this moment, the shattered dimension and chaos on Earth immediately froze inside a 10,000 square feet glacier. Flaming Divine Fist. Conception. Clang. Once the Flaming Divine Fist had reached conception, it was no longer an Amber Tier inferior skill. A skill of this level could not be measured, as it was neither an Amber Tier nor Onyx Tier. However, it was definitely stronger than the Amber Tier and a regular Onyx Tier, since the degree of force had reached that of an Onyx Tier superior skill. It was unimaginable for the Flaming Divine Fist to put an end to the Ice Vitality Divine Fist under normal circumstances. Nevertheless, succeeding in conception would see the glacier resolved in a single fist. This was also all part of Li Lingtian's plan. Otherwise, even an Earth Tier skill, let alone an Amber Tier skill, would not be able to abolish the glacier formed by his immemorial ice crystal. Heaven and Earth conflagration. With the glacier gone, the Earth resumed its peace while the dimensions stabilized. However, it was at this moment when the temperature that surrounded Li Lingtian rose steeply within the range of 100 yards, reducing everything to ashes. As palm print after palm print was unleashed, a sea of fire emerged before it seared the forest within a 100-yard radius to nothing. With the ground set on fire as well, the land melted into lava. Raging flames towered to a height of 100 yards in the sky. Standing amid the flames, Li Lingtian was the master in control, and a confident smile slipped past his lips. Retrieve. At a wave of his arms, the flames disappeared into his body in the blink of an eye. The endless flow of spiritual chi in the surrounding was quickly absorbed. Tier 5 Warrior Spirit Breakthrough. The spiritual chi between heaven and earth formed a vacuum after it burned up in flames. As Li Lingtian retrieved the flames, he too absorbed the spiritual chi at an insane rate. He then circulated the heaven and earth reincarnation in his body to convert this endless flow of spiritual chi to true chi. Once the true chi reached the pinnacle of Tier 4, it was the moment of breakthrough. Hence, the powerful true chi made a quantum leap past Tier 4 to Tier 5 warrior spirit state. Just as his true chi depleted, he had achieved the peak of Tier 5 warrior spirit state. Hidden Dragon Isle was boundless and vast. No one knew exactly how huge it was. Hundreds of centuries had passed in Hidden Dragon Isle, but no one had been able to uncover the isle in its entirety. Although 10,000 warriors scrambled in when it opened once every 100 years, not many medicinal supplies and demonic beasts were brought out. On the contrary, the quality of the herbs became better over the years and the demonic beasts had grown stronger. Second-tier demonic beasts roamed everywhere while third-tier demonic beasts were a common sight. Around a usually quiet lake of 30 miles in size, gathered several hundred great warriors. These warriors were at least a Tier 6 or 7 warrior spirit. There were also many Tier 9 warrior spirits and a handful of warrior kings. Yao Tianxiong, so you're saying that Divine Dragon Palace is here? Zhou Tianjiao gazed at the 30-mile-sized lake. With no hint of activity, it was peaceful and quiet at the lake. He was puzzled at the absence of Divine Dragon Palace. That's right. Look at how the 4 mountains surrounding this lake and the size of this lake. Doesn't it resemble the map? Are you doubting the sect leader? Taking a look around with a watchful eye, Yao Tianxiong answered with confidence before he turned his gaze to Zhou Tianjiao and other warriors. He darted a sharp stare at Zhou Tianjiao. Sect leader Nangong would not become a warrior emperor had he not entered Hidden Dragon Isle the last time. There should be a number of people who are aware of Divine Dragon Palace's location. Look at them, bursting with confidence, Zhou Tianjiao replied without a care in the world. Many knew of Divine Palace in Hidden Dragon Isle, but none had gained access to the palace before. The real treasure of Hidden Dragon Isle was inside Divine Dragon Palace. Since they could not infiltrate the palace, they could only search the perimeters for medicinal supply while they faced the attacks of high-level demonic beasts. Both of them were warrior kings, super geniuses of the Tianjin Empire, who had become warrior king powerhouses before the age of 30. While the duo was in conversation, countless warriors by the lake felt a throb that stirred a discussion amongst them. As they looked up to the sky, they saw a large airship approaching in a swoosh. Chapter 47 Killing a Warrior King. Chapter 47 Killing a Warrior King. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Is there anyone who would like to enter Divine Dragon Palace? If you wish to gain access into Divine Dragon Palace, we should open the gate together. Don't even dream about taking advantage. Take your pick between opening Divine Dragon Palace's gate or get lost. Or else. In a flash, Tian Wuji slapped a magical spell on his body, and he was immediately suspended in the air. Darting a sharp gaze around, Tian Wuji shouted, "That's right, we should team up to open Divine Dragon Palace's gate to get inside or leave us be." Yao Tianxiong too stood up. As a warrior of Tianjin Empire, even if he did not see eye to eye with Tian Wuji, the second prince, he should not bring shame to Tianjin Empire. For a moment, 6 warrior kings of Tianjin Empire stood up, followed by warrior kings of the Southern Empire and Northern Dusk Empire. Warriors of every empire stood behind the warrior kings. They were either Tier 9 peak in perfection warrior spirits or those in possession of treasures. Sky Dragon Empire, are you the only one this time? Soon, masters of 4 empires split up. The representatives of the 4 mysterious superclans, Duanmu, Shangguan, Dongfang, and Baiming were all warrior king powerhouses. However, as part of the Eastern Spirit Greenland's 4 great empires, Sky Dragon Empire only had Zhou Qingqing, a woman, as a warrior king. Behind her stood 6 Tier 9 warrior spirits, and one of them was Dongfang Qingyu. The masters snickered at Sky Dragon Empire's talents. In this dog-eat-dog world, and as Sky Dragon Empire's supersect, not a single super disciple at the level of a warrior king was in sight. "It's only me. Any objections?" Zhou Qingqing's expression hardened. She was a genius disciple who represented Sky Dragon Empire at this time and place. In fact, there were only 8 of them from Sky Dragon Empire, while the other empires had dozens of survivors, including 7 to 8 warrior kings at least. The threats from Tian Wuji and Yao Tianxiong brought forward gifted warriors, who wished to enter Divine Dragon Palace, to the lakeside. There were about 300 of them. No objections. However, if Sky Dragon Empire wants to gain access to Divine Dragon Palace, you're only entitled to a limited amount of resources inside, Southern Empire's Bei Ao blurted coldly. Although nobody was aware of the number of treasures inside, it would be strange not to take advantage of the weak Sky Dragon Empire by setting a limit. Haha, that's right. You're the only ones from Sky Dragon Empire. You won't be enough to pave the way for us. Sky Dragon Empire is really going downhill. I think it's better if you merge into our 3 great empires. There are no geniuses in Sky Dragon Empire, only trash. It seems like it will be the end of Sky Dragon Empire after this. 2. The super geniuses by the lakeside roared with laughter, leaving Zhou Qingqing's team in rage. Nevertheless, it was not the right place or time to step on these people's toes. No one from the outside would know if they were to face massacre here. Hundreds and thousands of warriors afar joined in mocking Sky Dragon Empire, but no one from Sky Dragon Empire dared to voice out. In the law of the jungle, retaliation without the ability to fight back was a surefire road to hell. "You're not saying a word, so I take that you agree to it," Tianwuji commented arrogantly. Now, Tianjin Empire had one less rival. Sky Dragon Empire could simply be disregarded. "Tianwuji, don't cross the line." Red and blue in the face, Dongfang Qingyu's body quivered. He was on the verge of running amok. "Haha, Dongfang Qingyu, as a Tier 6 warrior spirit, you sure have the balls to butt in. I'll let you rest eternally if you don't shut up." Darting a stare at Dongfang Qingyu, Bei Ao surged his body vigor and sent his powerful demonic energy to press down onto Dongfang Qingyu's chest. Tui! Dongfang Qingyu spat a mouthful of blood before he collapsed to the ground. His face was as white as a sheet. 10,000 demons sex warriors were feeling right at home amidst this astounding demonic energy. Caught in a fortuitous opportunity, this warrior king powerhouse had struck his repression and wounded Dongfang Qingyu. "Bei Ao, kneel before me." A faint voice was heard. Although the tone sounded indolent, many warriors were dumbfounded at such an occasion. Bei Ao was a warrior king, a Tier 2 warrior king. Moreover, the repression coming from the demonic energy had further pushed his Tier 2 warrior king state to Tier 3. With these few empires and mysterious clans occupying the lakeside, who would dare challenge a warrior king? Following the statement, a youth in white emerged within everyone's sight and they were taken aback. Without taking any measures, a Tier 5 warrior spirit eased his way into the demonic energy's repression and had the guts to provoke Bei Ao, a warrior king. "Junior Brotherly! Junior Brotherly! It's him! Junior Brotherly, get out!" Many of whom recognized Li Lingtian were taken by surprise. Realizing that it was Li Lingtian, Dongfang Qingyu immediately told him to leave, knowing that he would not survive against these warrior kings. "Don't even think about escaping. Your only choice is to leave this place dead for trying my patience," Bei Ao exclaimed with a dirty look on his face. How could a Tier 5 warrior spirit trash command him to get down on his knees? Moreover, Li Lingtian had insulted him in front of so many super geniuses. "I told you to kneel, are you king deaf or dumb? Do you understand the words coming out of my mouth?" Li Lingtian trod step by step ahead until he reached the lakeside. His cold eyes were fixated on Bei Ao. He deserved death for harming a Sky Cloud sect disciple. He would not be bothered if it were anything else. However, bounds were overstepped when the empires of Eastern Spirit Greenland made a mockery out of Sky Dragon Empire. A powerhouse would never turn his back on his motherland. As a young man of the 21st century, even though he was without cash, looks, or love, he was patriotic. No shame should be put upon weaker nations. This was a matter of principle. Regardless of the circumstance, he would not stand by his nation to be insulted. Although Sky Dragon Empire did not have much of a relationship with him, he had transmigrated to this empire after all. Sky Dragon Empire was his home. What use was his cultivation if he were to sit on the sidelines and watch his empire suffer affront? Huh! The crowd burst into an uproar. The warriors were at a loss to see a useless Tier 5 warrior spirit of Sky Dragon Empire boldly challenge and fling abuse at a warrior king. "Rah! I will tear you apart today or my name isn't Bei Ao." Blowing a fuse, Bei Ao circulated his demonic energy. Amid the repression from the demonic energy, disciples of 10,000 demons sect were able to easily unleash skills like duck to water. As a horrifying vigor rose steeply, Bei Ao pounced at Li Lingtian like a wild beast. The way he saw it, one easy strike should take out this Tier 5 warrior spirit trash. "I told you to kneel, you better listen." Watching as a tall and sturdy figure pounced over with an air of ripping vigor, Li Lingtian sneered at the vicious attack coming his way. Warriors who were staring at Li Lingtian and Bei Ao from afar had foreseen the outcome. The Tier 5 warrior spirit Li Lingtian would be torn apart and meet his end. Countless powerhouses held in contempt of Li Lingtian's pretentious attitude, yet no one realized the change in Li Lingtian's vigor. Ah! As a silver glow flickered in air, 2 blood-curdling screams echoed throughout the land. For one to let out such a wail, the pain inflicted must be to a certain degree. Wham! Following a dull crash, Bei Ao's sturdy frame crash-landed in front of Li Lingtian. However, Li Lingtian remained unscathed while Bei Ao fell on his knees before him. What is going on? Why did he listen? He kneeled. No way, a warrior king kneeling before a Tier 5 warrior spirit. Bei Ao was going to kill Li Lingtian in a single move. How did he end up kneeling towards Li Lingtian? He had forced such amazing vigor yet ended up kneeling. 2. For a moment, countless warriors were like fish out of water by the visual impact. The entire scene was so unusual that it took several seconds before they found their voices. Junior brother Li's earlier move was strange. He pulled his sword, but his speed surpassed the naked eye. He had crippled Bei Ao with his blade aura. With surprise and admiration, Misty Pavilion's Lu Yi and another disciple exchanged their views in muffled voices. It was possible to cripple a warrior king in a single move. I told you to kneel, you should have listened earlier. Bam! Li Lingtian stared at Bei Ao with a beaming grin. There was nothing in his hands as the purple-green sword was kept away. Deep down, he was pleasantly surprised by the might of this sword. Bei Ao was crippled, yet not a single strand of the onyx equipment's repression had leaked. Li Lingtian then raised his arm and unleashed his flaming divine fist before he pulled a punch at Bei Ao. Bei Ao, a 10,000 demons sect warrior king equipped with great defense, was single-handedly burnt to crisps in the face of a flaming divine first in its conception. Strong defense, and yet this is all you can do? What garbage! Senior brother Dongfang, take a step back. Leave this to me. Li Lingtian replied indifferently while he curled his lip at the scorched Bei Ao in a distance. He drew near Dongfang Qingyu and handed 2 10,000 spirit pills to him. Junior brother, be careful. I am incompetent and have let down Sky Cloud Sect. With gratitude, Dongfang Qingyu accepted the pills and walked out. He had witnessed Li Lingtian's ability. If Li Lingtian was able to prevail over Duan Muqing, a Tier 6 warrior spirit when he was a mere Tier 9 warrior, what was he now that he became a Tier 6 warrior spirit? The impeccable advancement of Li Lingtian's cultivation was a testament to his menacing competence. All of you here, is there anyone else who is unwilling to accept this? Even if you refuse to accept, your only choice is to sit and take it. Li Lingtian waited until Dongfang Qingyu left before he turned to the 10,000 demons sect's masters. He then swept a glance over to the powerhouses by the lake until finally, his gaze fell on Tian Wujian. Hiss! The crowd broke out into another uproar. Not only had he crippled Bei Ao in a single move, using the trashiest flaming divine fist to take down Bei Ao, but now he was making waves with all the powerhouses. The world had gone mad. Although this man had asked whether anyone remained defiant, they had to hold it in even if one refused to accept the result. This was blatant tyranny. Chapter 48 Chapter 48 Thousand Shadows of Fluttering Flowers. Chapter 48 Thousand Shadows of Fluttering Flowers. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Li Lingtian, you have crossed the line, Xin Tian of Tianjin Empire's Divine Sword Sect blurted coldly. Li Lingtian had taken a dig at them in the presence of 20-odd warriors and over 100 powerhouses. While others may not have had a clear look at how Li Lingtian defeated Bei Ao, Shen Tian saw it with his own eyes. For Li Lingtian to cripple a warrior king with a sword, it stirred a battle intent within him. The majority of disciples in Divine Sword sect were proficient in swordsmanship due to the powerful might that was driven by sword cultivation. It could be said that rarely anyone of the same tier was a match to these disciples. Having seen Li Lingtian demonstrate his sword technique, Shen Tian now wished to experience his technique firsthand. As a Tier 2 warrior king equipped with Divine Sword sect's Annihilation Sword, he thought little of Li Lingtian, a mere warrior spirit disciple. Cross the line. Did it occur to you that you've crossed the line when you humiliated my Sky Dragon Empire? If I have indeed crossed the line and got on your nerves, I can only apologize, but let me say this. Yes, I crossed the line, so come bite me, Li Lingtian replied dully. The calm look on his face had the warriors from Sky Dragon Empire hang their heads low in shame. His continued statement left many warriors thinking that Li Lingtian was backing down and looking for an out. However, it had never occurred to them that he would aggravate the situation. Whoa! The warriors may be gobsmacked, but the girls from Misty Pavilion, including Lu Yi, burst into chuckles by this junior brother's humor. Yet in the face of countless masters, Li Lingtian remained collected. Fine, very good. Shen Tian smirked out of rage. He surged his bodily vigor, and at the extend of his arm, a 3-foot-long sword emerged. A fierce blade aura immediately hovered over the sword. As the domineering blade aura soared upwards, the sword emitted an annihilating intent. Tyrannical Dragon Sword Technique's Annihilation Form. With rage burning in his eyes, Shen Tian swung his sword, causing a tremble in the air. As a powerful blade glare was sliced down towards Li Lingtian, many masters on site were ruffled by this luminous light. A Tier 2 warrior king could barely withstand the terrifying force from a warrior king's sword, let alone a Tier 5 warrior spirit. Although the incoming blade glare was within a 5-yard distance from Li Lingtian, he remained still. This left many others taken aback by his reaction, as they assumed that Li Lingtian was scared stiff. Where was the same person who crippled Bei Ao in a single move? Why was he staring blankly at the blade glare? You think you're worthy of using a sword before me? Vast obscure extermination, die. Following a calm voice, Li Lingtian stretched his arm and unleashed an astonishing repression in an instant. At the same time, the foot-long purple-green sword in his hand released a domineering repression. An onyx equipment. A mediocre onyx equipment. Countless powerhouses gasped upon detecting the purple-green sword's repression. A spiritual equipment was considered quite domineering, yet this Sky Cloud sect's Tier 5 warrior spirit disciple brought out an onyx equipment. While various powerhouses were caught by surprise, Li Lingtian's purple-green sword sliced through the air. The atmosphere turned rather unusual as a vast obscure extermination chi spread through the air and swiftly headed towards Shen Tian's blade glare in the form of countless sword shreds. Fizz fizz, fizz fizz. There were no explosions, only subtle noises as these sword shreds quickly corroded the mighty blade glare to nothingness. These sword shreds then continued its journey to Shen Tian. Sword shield. Shen Tian was shocked. His tyrannical dragon sword technique proved a great force and was a top-rate skill in Divine Sword sect. It had never crossed his mind that his warrior king state combined with his onyx tier skill would be abolished by a Tier 5 warrior spirit disciple. It took great force for a blade aura to transform into shreds. Even a Divine Sword sect's master could barely achieve such a feat. Since he was well aware of the shredded blade aura's might, Shen Tian dared not take any chances. So, he drew his sword and soon a sword screen emerged. Swish swish, swish swish. Amid the collision between the sword shred and sword screen, many warriors stared blankly at Li Lingtian and Shen Tian. With both of them demonstrating such sword techniques, it became these warriors' primary experience in witnessing the impact coming from sword technique. Thousand shadows of fluttering flowers die. Li Lingtian was brewing with killing intent. The vast obscure extermination was incapable of finishing Shen Tian, a warrior king, and since the boat was already rocked, Shen Tian had to be wiped out in an attempt to nip in the bud. At a casual swing of the purple-green sword in his hand, countless blade auras burst out in a radiant eruption. These hundreds and thousands of fallen leaves like blade auras were a force to be reckoned with altogether. Tyrannical dragon sword technique's invincible form. Shen Tian felt as though he had shot himself in the foot. This warrior spirit disciple was so strong that his sword shield could only be subjected to defense. At the sight of his opponent's crushing blow, Shen Tian was overwhelmed with terror. This feeling he had was as though he was faced with a warrior ascendant. So, Shen Tian circulated the true qi from his whole body before he drew his sword to numerous domineering blade aura. Immediately, these blade auras came into blows with Li Lingtian's thousand shadows of fluttering flowers. Bam! The astounding demonic energy's repression was ripped apart by the explosion. As Li Lingtian's body swayed, he quickly circulated his breeze technique and retreated a few steps until he forced a secured footing. Ah! Tui! Following a loud cry, Shen Tian spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was hurled up to the sky before it slammed down on the ground. With that, the colliding blade auras gradually receded. Dozens of blade auras had penetrated Shen Tian's attack and pierced through his heart. He was long gone. The lakeside was pin-drop silent as everyone held their breaths. A Sky Cloud Sex warrior spirit disciple had slaughtered 2 warrior king powerhouses in succession. There's finally some peace and quiet. It's time all of you put your heads together to think of a way to open Divine Dragon Palace's gate. Li Lingtian's voice broke the lake's silence and pulled many warriors back to reality. In contrast to Li Lingtian's indifference, they were all quivering in the knees. This young man was a terrifying existence indeed. Junior Brother Li! Junior Brother Li! Li Lingtian then walked towards the warriors of Sky Dragon Empire. When he arrived, even Zhou Qingqing, who was a warrior king, nodded in greeting. The other warriors greeted Li Lingtian as well, to which he nodded in a polite response. He then closed his eyes and did not say a word. What a powerful attack! A warrior king was killed in a single move. He's going to be in trouble for killing Divine Sword Sect's genius disciple. Sky Cloud Sect will suffer Divine Sword Sect's crushing blow. Shush, at least no one can defeat him here. For a moment, many warriors whispered in discussions. Although the voices were soft, Li Lingtian heard them all. He smirked inwardly. The fact that he was bold enough to kill a genius of Divine Sword Sect was evidence that he was not afraid of Divine Sword Sect. Let's begin by figuring a way to break the gate. Otherwise, our true qi would be exhausted before we get in. Death will be waiting for us then. Tian Wuji took a glance at Li Lingtian. He was not going to be hasty by striking Li Lingtian. Although he thought nothing of Li Lingtian, a Tier 5 warrior spirit, he should refrain from stepping on anyone's toes with his enemies lurking around. The commanding tone prompted every warrior on site to crack their heads on opening this gate. Only by breaking through this gate could they enter Divine Dragon Palace. Make way, let me take a look. A young man walked out and strode forward. Many warriors did not say a word at the appearance of this youth. This was the super genius of Southern Empire's 9 Alps. 9 Alps was known to all for its powerful formation teachings, and they were an unrivaled presence of such in the Eastern Spirit Greenland. There was no one more authoritative than him here. Han Zhong hid his glee as he cast his gaze on numerous warriors who were in line and standing aside. Here, he was only considered below average in terms of cultivation level as a Tier 6 warrior spirit. Nevertheless, he reigned supreme in the way of formation. Chapter 49 Extortion. Chapter 49 Extortion. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Heavenly Mystery Unravel. Han Zhong carefully examined Divine Dragon Palace's gate. With the constant change of expression on his face, it was obvious he did not know where to begin with this gate. After a moment's wait, Han Zhong realized that many masters behind him had turned impatient. Hence, he swung his arms furiously in wielding a disc before spell after spells were cast over it. Suddenly, the foot-long disc emitted a radiant glow that had a hint of mystery to it which caused some of the warrior kings behind to gasp in admiration. "Idiot, way to put on a show!" Li Lingtian smirked at the sight of Han Zhong dabbling about the disc. Only he knew the way to open the gate. Others were delusional to think they could open it. "What did you say?" At the sound of Li Lingtian's voice, numerous warriors turned their gaze to him. They were about to blow their top, but held it in when they noticed that it was Li Lingtian. "I said he can't open this gate. He's merely trying to find himself an out." Li Lingtian answered in a flat tone while his gaze drifted upwards. The demonic energy's repression was thinning in the atmosphere. By the looks of it, the trip to Hidden Dragon Isle would be in vain if the gate could not be opened. Wham! Poof! As soon as Li Lingtian said that, the disc in Han Zhong's hands fired a radiance towards the gate. Then at the sound of an explosion, the gate was enveloped in a giant light barrier that repelled the disc's radiance. Han Zhong was physically blown away by the repelling force. It tossed him 100 yards away before he collapsed onto the ground like a dead pig. By the sheer stillness, it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. "Isn't there anyone who can open the gate? Our efforts will be in vain if we can't enter Divine Dragon Palace in 10 minutes, Li Lingtian shouted with his eyes fixed on Han Zhong afar. Li Lingtian was not going to give it in just yet. Even if he knew the way in, he was not going to let these guys have it the easy way. "What did you say? In vain. Isn't Divine Dragon Palace here?" Puzzled, the few warrior kings stared at Li Lingtian. Although Li Lingtian was only a warrior spirit disciple, no one dared to treat him like one. "Are you blind? Can't you sense the weakening of demonic energy's repression? This means that Divine Dragon Palace is about to disappear," Li Lingtian answered with disdain as he pointed towards the sky. Compared to the beginning, the current repression had declined by a whole lot. After listening to Li Lingtian's statement, the warriors who had retreated 3 miles away were instantly intrigued. Although this meant that they would now be able to withstand the repression that was on a decline, they were held back by the sight of the warrior kings and first-rate masters. "Is there anyone else who can open this gate? Otherwise, we just went on a wild goose chase." Anxious, Tian Wuji and Xiong Hao both cried out. Since they were both warrior kings, they could sense the change in the atmosphere. They had waited for a long time, yet no one spoke up. This was because no one dared to volunteer after Han Zhong. The formation master was thrown back by the impact. "Garbage, a bunch of garbage. I'll do it then." Grinning inside, Li Lingtian took large strides forward and stopped 10 yards in front of Divine Dragon Palace. He stood erected on a spiritual equipment. "You can open this gate." "Well, hurry up then." Tian Wuji and Xiong Hao were dumbfounded to see Li Lingtian come forth. Sure, Li Lingtian had skills, but it was a different story in dealing with the gate. "Hee, I can open this gate, but—" Li Lingtian chuckled at the 300-odd warriors, and his eyes revealed slight mischief. "But what? Get straight to the point. After opening this gate, you'll be the first to enter." They lost their patience at Li Lingtian's conditions. However, it was not the time to get on Li Lingtian's bad side. Putting his ability aside, only Li Lingtian was the only one who came forth when no one volunteered to open the gate. I can open this gate for you, but those who wish to enter Divine Dragon Palace are required to pay 100,000 spiritual stones, or else I won't bother wasting my breath. Li Lingtian may be speaking in an indifferent tone, but the words coming from his mouth left countless warriors gobsmacked. Fuck that, it's daylight robbery. 100,000 spiritual stones. Do you think spiritual stones are plain rocks? You have gone mad thinking about spiritual stones. 100,000 spiritual stones. That's enough to buy out every premium spiritual equipment. For a moment, many gasped in exclamation. 100,000 spiritual stones were the annual income of a small-scale sect. An inner sect disciple of Sky Cloud sect only received 100 spiritual stones on a monthly basis. Even for an inner sect disciple, 100,000 spiritual stones required the accumulation of 100 years without deduction on food and other usages. Nevertheless, those present on site were geniuses of the Eastern Spirit Greenland's supersects and clans. Hence, they were never short of spiritual stones. Li Lingtian owed it to himself to take the chance in extorting them. Junior brother Li has lost his mind. He's too cool. He must be the first to charge everyone spiritual stones. 100,000 spiritual stones. There are over 300 of us here. Our Misty Pavilion doesn't possess that much even in a year. Many disciples from Sky Dragon Empire were surprised and stunned. A Tier 5 warrior spirit was extorting countless masters for spiritual stones. He sure had the guts. You have 10 seconds to think it over. HL leave once the 10 seconds are up and I won't be opening the gate then. Li Lingtian maintained an indifferent attitude, unconcerned of the dirty looks he was receiving from these supermasters. Based on his 21st century wisdom and understanding of human behavior, he was able to grasp the mentality of these super geniuses. Fine, 100,000, I'll give it to you. 100,000. I'm not short of spiritual stones, consider it a reward. My Tianjin Empire has plenty of spiritual stones. I'll give you 100,000. My Northern Dusk Empire is never lacking in spiritual stones. Come on, hand over the spiritual stones if you want to enter. I'll kill anyone who is holding us back. Speechless, Xiong Hao shot a menacing look at Li Lingtian. He was the first to take a stand and tossed 100,000 spiritual stones to Li Lingtian. The rest of the warriors then followed suit, forking out their spiritual stones reluctantly. Since the supersects, mysterious clans, and imperial prince were loaded, they could easily afford 100,000 spiritual stones. Moreover, anyone who entered Hidden Dragon Isle was familiar with slaughtering others for their goods. Take your time, one by one. I'm not in a hurry. Ignoring these guys who were missing out yet still tried to keep up appearances, Li Lingtian retrieved the large number of spiritual stones and kept them in his storage sack. In the distance, Louis's group remained appalled. It had never crossed their minds that a disciple of Sky Dragon Empire would make a fool out of these arrogant supermasters. Humph, I've given you the spiritual stones now, so if you can't open this gate, I'll be the first to kill you. You must be the one who killed my divine sword sex Su Tian. Watch your back, Yan Ming responded coldly. He was incredibly surprised to find Su Tian dead, but he immediately connected the dots when he saw Li Lingtian unleash the domineering sword technique. It was the doing of this young man. Not bad, you're all rich. I've never seen this many spiritual stones, hee. Li Lingtian looked at the dozen storage sacks in front of him that were all filled to the brim with spiritual stones. Over 36 million spiritual stones. He would not gain as much even in Sky Cloud sect in a year. 10 seconds? 100 seconds had passed. Are you playing us a fool? Li Lingtian's laid-back demeanor struck a thought in the few warrior kings. Li Lingtian mentioned from the start that the gate would not be opened after 10 seconds, yet over 100 seconds had passed. Did he just toy with them? I mean it when I said I can open it, but… Li Lingtian planned it out in his mind. He should make a run for it if he failed to open the gate later. Otherwise, he would be dead meat in the face of all these super masters. Chapter 50 Pseudo-Dragon Beasts Inner Vital. Chapter 50 Pseudo-Dragon Beasts Inner Vital. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. But, what the F***ck is with the buts? You have received the spiritual stones, so if you don't open this gate, be prepared to regret being born to this world. 100,000 spiritual stones were their entire asset, and Li Lingtian had milked them dry. There were a few warriors who did not have the lump sum, so Li Lingtian accepted tens of thousands from them, draining them to their last drop. Yet, Li Lingtian was still delaying the situation with his, but it would be odd if they did not flip their lid. After all, they had already pictured dismembering Li Lingtian in their mind. The key to opening this gate is on the second prince. He's aware of it but is reluctant. If you want to put the blame on someone, it should be on the second prince. Li Lingtian pointed at Tianwuji. With rage, the warriors turned their gaze to the second prince, Tianwuji. Li Lingtian, I did you a great favor by giving you spiritual stones. Are you trying to seek an out because you can't open the gate? Tell me then, how can I open the gate? Tianwuji was taken aback. Even as a prince of Tianjin Empire, he would die facing this many warriors. His anger had reached a boiling point. Yeah, how can the second prince open the gate? Don't bother thinking about looking for a way out of this. If the second prince can open the gate, would he fork out those spiritual stones in the first place? A few warrior kings were displeased to be played a fool, yet they had to hold it together. It was a god*mn awful feeling. The second prince's 100,000 spiritual stones are only a fraction of his treasures. I'm sure he would rather pay with spiritual stones. Moreover, he's not the only one paying. You would all reap the benefits if he were to take out the treasure, Li Lingtian answered with a smile. Since his powerful divine mindfulness and soul had once sighted the pseudo-dragon beast, he could remember the demonic beast's chi. Since the integration of his souls, his divine mindfulness had grown stronger. He had detected the pseudo-dragon beast on the second prince much earlier, but it seemed to be contained in some treasure. What is it? Yan Ming blurted coldly. With his cold eyes glancing from the second prince and over to Li Lingtian, Yan Ming surged his bodily vigor. The omnipotent vigor of a Tier 4 warrior king had many masters palpitating with fear. The inner vital of a pseudo-dragon beast is key to opening Divine Dragon Palace's gate. Take a look at the slot on the gate if you don't believe me. We must hurry if we want to open the gate, or else all would be in vain. Li Lingtian pointed at the gate. There was a knuckle-sized slot, about the size of a 4th-tier demonic beast's inner vital, on the gate. He trusted Nine Yang Sacred Lord's words because he would not lie to him. After all, Nine Yang Sacred Lord was him, and he was Nine Yang Sacred Lord. That's right. That's right, it's the slot for a 4th-tier demonic beast's inner vital. How did you know it's for the pseudo-dragon beast's inner vital? Are you bluffing? The few warrior kings scanned the gate with their divine mindfulness. When they realized that it was as Li Lingtian had described, they began to presume it was true. I know a thing or two as I have cultivated a type of mechanism art. It's not some formation on the gate but a numerological mechanism. The pseudo-dragon beast's inner vital is required to open Divine Dragon Palace's gate. There, I've given you the method, so opening the gates will rest on you now. Having said that, Li Lingtian's eyes fixated on the second prince. It had nothing to do with numerological mechanisms, as Nine Yang Sacred Yang was the one who told him the method of getting in. Second Prince, for the sake of entering Divine Dragon Palace, I'm sorry for what I'm about to do. Your Highness the Second Prince, you should hand the pseudo-dragon beast over. Although it's a 4th-tier pseudo-dragon beast, treasures are abundant within the palace. Surely, the beast can't compare in value. Are you trying to keep it a secret? We wouldn't have lost that many spiritual stones if you brought out the pseudo-dragon beast earlier. With the second prince, Tian Wuji under fire, Li Lingtian became an irrelevant presence. Ah, Li Lingtian, I want to tear you to pieces. Tian Wuji erupted his body of vigor. Not only did he lose 100,000 spiritual stones, but he was also humiliated. Of course, he was ballistic to be made a sitting duck. A 4th-tier pseudo-dragon beast was comparable to a warrior ascendant but proved to be more practical than a warrior ascendant on the battlefield. However, he now had no choice but to hand out the pseudo-dragon beast under such circumstances. Second Prince, I'll be honest, you should take out the pseudo-dragon beast for everyone's sake. We will be grateful to Your Highness the Second Prince, Li Lingtian said with a faint smile, oblivious to the Second Prince's burning rage. Putting the question on whether he could fight a Tier 2 peak warrior king aside, escaping was an easy feat for Li Lingtian. Tui! Tian Wuji spat a mouthful of blood. He had never seen such a shameless person who could stir such rage in him. Pale in the face, the Second Prince was so enraged that he spat a mouthful of blood. If his eyes could kill, Li Lingtian would have been dead for over tens of thousands of times now. Fine, I'll bring out the pseudo-dragon beast, but you will be the ones to kill it. Nevertheless, he kept a cool head. As Li Lingtian had remarkable skills, he would not gain an advantage if he were to act rashly. Besides, he stood no chance against all these lurking enemies. His only choice was to bring out the pseudo-dragon beast. Let's team up to kill the pseudo-dragon beast, Yao Tianxiong cried out. With that, all warriors, kings and warrior spirits formed a large circle as they waited for Tian Wuji to release the pseudo-dragon beast. Roar, roar! Following a vibration in the air, the pseudo-dragon beast appeared out of thin air before these warriors and roared at its prey. Bam! Attack! Wham! The moment the beast made its appearance, countless fierce attacks were slammed onto the pseudo-dragon beast. Under these attacks, the 4th-tier pseudo-dragon beast, an existence equivalent to a warrior ascendant, had exhausted much of its energy before Tian Wuji used a ruse to trap it inside a treasure. As its injuries and demonic energy were restricted from recovery inside the treasure, the pseudo-dragon beast's demonic energy defense gradually vanished the moment it was let out and hit with worse attack. Wham! After the loud crash, the giant pseudo-dragon beast was killed without putting up a struggle. Although it possessed the ability that was equal to a Tier 4 warrior ascendant, it still met its end in the face of several hundred warrior spirits and dozens of warrior kings. Tian Wuji was heartbroken to watch the death of the pseudo-dragon beast. This was his ace in the hole, yet it was taken down just like that. This prompted Tian Wuji to channel his anger onto Li Lingtian. Alright, leave it to me. Li Lingtian had been observing at the side with a hardened expression. The strength of a single warrior king was indeed powerful, and it was even more destructive with their strengths put together. Once the pseudo-dragon beast was dead, Li Lingtian stood up with Zhou Qingqing and the rest followed closely behind him. Several super empires and mysterious clans, excluding the group from Sky Dragon Empire, had given Li Lingtian hundreds of thousands of spiritual stones. The people from Sky Dragon Empire could not afford to, but neither did Li Lingtian request any from them. Instead, they were instructed by Li Lingtian to charge forward once they entered Divine Dragon Palace. Otherwise, they might suffer attacks from other masters. Li Lingtian skillfully retrieved the inner vital. The omnipotence of a 4th-tier demonic beast's inner vital was foretelling from the spread of its heavy demonic energy. If refined, the inner vital could advance one's cultivation by several states, but no warrior spirits or warriors would chance on refining it hastily. This inner vital was also the main ingredient in refining grade 4 or 5 pills. However, its purpose now was to open Divine Dragon Palace's gate. Let me return this to you. Li Lingtian held the inner vital and flew towards the gate, but not before kicking the pseudo-dragon beast's carcass towards the second prince, Tian Wuji. His actions had enraged Tian Wuji as he spat another mouthful of blood. Looking at the slot on the gate, Li Lingtian prayed earnestly for the gate to open. Otherwise, he would end up as the attack target of all the warriors here. If opening the gate was a success, the other warriors would take into consideration his ability despite their desire to kill him. However, these warriors would go berserk and lose their minds over him if it were the contrary. Although Li Lingtian was a foot away from placing the inner vital into the slot, it felt as if it had taken him a year to get there. Click. Fizz fizz. Bam! The moment the inner vital was placed into the slot, the gate let out a piercing sound. A tiny crack then revealed and a destructive demonic energy whizzed past. Countless warriors in front of the gate were immediately strangled to death by this demonic energy. Even the warrior kings were thrown back by this force, which caused them to sustain cuts all over their body. Come, let's go in. Li Lingtian pushed forth an arm to hasten the opening of the heavy gate. Once the gate had opened a foot wide, he contorted his body before he made a dash inside. After disappearing into the gate in the blink of an eye, Zhou Qingqing and her group swiftly jumped on the bandwagon. For a while, many warriors poured into the gate in a mad dash. Chapter 51 Chapter 51 Dragon Abysm. Chapter 51 Dragon Abysm. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Swish swish, swish swish. Over 300 warriors quickly scrambled through Divine Dragon Palace's gate. Even the warriors afar raced over. Li Lingtian arrived into another world the moment he stepped into the gate. In fact, the tiny-looking silver palace from the outside was vast on the inside. Unlike the insides of a palace, it was an independent world with mountains, water, and lakes instead. Besides, the atmosphere carried a rich spiritual qi that had a slight hint of demonic energy. What rich spiritual qi? Li Lingtian was shocked to find quite a substantial spiritual qi. However, he dared not linger long. Since he had stepped on the toes of every possible warrior in eastern Spirit Greenland, he would definitely meet his end if he encountered them. With that, he bolted 3 yards away in flash and relaxed a little when he did not find any warriors tailing him behind. Roar! At that moment, a piercing violent roar sent a shiver down Li Lingtian's spine before a pair of vicious eyes fixated on him. What the hell, what luck? A 4th-tier level 1 copper bell beast. A demonic beast towering at 15 feet and as wide as 30 feet had eyes the size of a bowl while its body released a powerful qi. This 4th-tier level 1 beast had similar capabilities to a warrior ascendant. What luck did Li Lingtian have to encounter such an insane demonic beast upon entry? Run, only an idiot would not take off. With his gaze on this powerful copper bell beast, Li Lingtian circulated his body of true qi to unleash his breeze technique to its summit and made a run for it. Only an idiot would stay to fight a 4th-tier copper bell beast. Not to mention, warriors were coming ahead. With a demonic beast at the front and warriors in the back, he was not one to be caught in a sandwich. Roar, roar. With sounds of roar thundering behind him, Li Lingtian wished that he could climb on all fours. It took 5 minutes of running before the growling sounds eventually faded. Although the howls may be gone, a powerful explosion ensued. Needless to say, someone had met with another streak of bad luck. Huh. This is a 1000-year wooded sunflower. A foot-tall tricolor flower was covered in a layer of heavy spiritual qi. Moreover, the area within 10 yards was also clouded with spiritual qi. The flower was about the size of a knuckle and had dark green leaves. There were only 7 leaves on it, but these leaves released the same richness of spiritual qi. Li Lingtian was ecstatic to see this tricolor flower because this was the main ingredient for a grade 5 pill. If sold outside, this 1,000-year herb was worth tens of thousands of spiritual stones. Mine. Without any hesitation, he gestured a spell to retrieve this 1,000-year wooded sunflower. As an apothecary, he was well aware of the method to preserve this medicinal herb. It did not take him long to retrieve this 1,000-year wooded sunflower before he searched for other medicinal supplies. In a place that was rich with spiritual qi, coming across such 100 or 1,000-year herbs was effortless. In the course of a day, Li Lingtian had collected up to 100,000-year medicinal supply, and this made him exhilarated. There were an infinite of 100-year and 500-year medicinal supplies here. Just like that, Li Lingtian began on a journey of searching for medicinal supplies and slaughtering demonic beasts without restraint. There were no first and second tier demonic beasts in here, only third and fourth tier demonic beasts. Li Lingtian had more than enough capability to kill third tier demonic beasts, but fourth tier demonic beasts were a different story. Hence, he could only try to steer clear of fourth-tier demonic beasts, and in the circumstances which he could not, he would unleash his trump card. As days went by, Li Lingtian had lost count of the medicinal supply he had collected in his storage sack. He had at least 70 or 80 third-tier inner vitals, as well as 7 inner vitals that belonged to fourth-tier demonic beasts. He made sure to collect valuable inner vitals and blood essence, as these were the apothecary's favorite materials. As always, Li Lingtian only moved in one direction in search of materials. On this day, he arrived at a humongous mountain range that was entwined with spiritual qi as thick as a fog. What a heavy spiritual qi! That's not right. There seems to be vast demonic energy in the spiritual qi. While he was on his way, the demonic energy grew stronger the deeper he went. With that sign, he knew that he was in the right direction. As he approached the mountain, the demonic energy had reached a threshold. However, this demonic energy was stronger than the demonic energy's repression at the lake outside. Roar! Roar! Just then, the entire hidden dragon isle, including Divine Dragon Palace, trembled at an eruption of roar. Li Lingtian spat out a mouthful of blood. This voice was not a sound wave attack, and instead, it carried an astounding repression. Although he had quite the capability, he was as weak as an ant before this voice. The roar of a dragon. It's the draconic might, the real draconic might. Li Lingtian trembled deep down. It was unclear whether it was due to excitement or revere, but above this huge mountain range, a golden phantom figure vaguely appeared. He was thrown off at the sight of the golden phantom figure. This was the legendary dragon from his past life, a golden dragon, a powerful golden dragon. All living beings prostrated in worship under the draconic might. In his past life, Cathay's totem was a dragon. Although the belief of dragons' descendants was only a legend, the children of Cathay believed that they were the descendants of a dragon. It had never crossed his mind that he would witness, with his very own eyes, such legend. This was the real golden dragon, even though it was only in the form of a phantom figure. Snarl! After the draconic might sounded for 9 times, the mountain range split opened before it swiftly diminished it to an illusion of nothingness. Li Lingtian, too, had entered a mirage. A virtual world. This place is all a mirage. At the disappearance of the mountain range, Li Lingtian finally caught an inkling of the situation. This mountain range was an illusion, an almighty spell cast by a great master. Li Lingtian was in a fragile state of mind after entering the virtual world. Barren land was in plain sight, yet spiritual chi filled every inch of the place. This was the dragon world in ancient times. There were giant skeletal frames around, with each skeleton about 300-odd feet in length. It was not hard to guess the omnipotence of a real dragon prior to its death. All these skeletal frames were also releasing a powerful draconic energy. His Tier 5 warrior spirit's cultivation level, which was equivalent to the existence of a warrior king, was nothing compared to these skeletons. Dragons, the presence of true gods. I, as a mere warrior spirit, am only an ant, Li Lingtian mumbled in an attempt of self-comfort. Li Lingtian's mind was overwhelmed by the countless powerful draconic bones. It was quite a visual impact. Under this shock, Li Lingtian trod step by step forward. It was unknown how many skeletal frames he had walked past on the way, but these skeletons that varied in size once belonged to powerful dragons. Tui! Li Lingtian spat out a mouthful of blood. Even he was weighed down to blood-spitting when faced with such boundless draconic chi. It took a while before a grand palace entered his vision. The palace was 100 yards in height, but its length behind went on for miles. Huge draconic bones rested on both sides of the palace. Dragon Abysm. Approaching the palace, Li Lingtian could see the 2 calligraphic words written in bold brushstrokes on top of the wide door. The forceful brushstrokes gave out a vibe of pressing force. Human WL come to the Dragon ABSM. A commanding voice came from inside the palace. The voice may be faint, but it brought about an almighty draconic might. The tone sounded stiff, as though it had been over hundreds of centuries since it had spoken any words. Following the voice, the palace doors opened up. The overcast resembled the time before Earth was created. Li Lingtian could not help but walk in. Within his vision was a spacious palace where over 100 giant dragons dwelled. Each giant dragon, about 100 yards in size, emitted an astonishing draconic might and demonic energy. These giant white dragons formed 2 rows, leaving a 10-yard wide passageway in the middle. At the sight of these giant dragons, Li Lingtian felt as though he had fallen into a bottomless abyss at the sight of these giant dragons. Although the cultivation level of these giant dragons was unknown, the repression alone was enough to crush him alive. Humans were really a measly ant before these giant dragons. Then, Li Lingtian's face turned pale white while his eyes reeked of terror. Chapter 52 Chapter 52 True Dragon Body Barrier. Chapter 52 True Dragon Body Barrier. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Huh? They aren't alive. Li Lingtian soon realized these giant dragons had not moved at all, and there were no signs of life in them. Otherwise, the repression from a single giant dragon would have reduced him to ashes. We have no life. Right in the center of the palace, a golden phantom figure flickered in front of a huge throne. It had the face of a human and the body of a giant dragon. The phantom figure suspended in the air on top of the giant dragon, like a wandering soul. This golden dragon phantom figure gazed straight at the human before it, which left Li Lingtian feeling as though the gaze saw through him. Human, you come from the deep blue planet, the golden dragon phantom figure faintly said as the astounding draconic chi and energy entwined around the golden dragon. It only took the utterance of a single sentence to drain a faction of both the draconic chi and energy. How did you know? Li Lingtian was horrified. Only Nine Yang Sacred Lord knew of this secret, and since Nine Yang Sacred Lord was fearful of Divine Dragon Palace, he did now know how the Golden Dragon had seen through his secret. I have been to the deep blue planet. Your principal form had attempted to enter here several times, but it was to no avail. I didn't expect for you to merge your souls. The golden dragon phantom figure may have answered nonchalantly, but it caused quite a stir in Li Lingtian. I see you've been to Earth. Li Lingtian had it figured out. The golden dragon did exist on Earth, but it had crossed dimensions to arrive here in the end. The shift in dimensions and difference in time between both spaces were the reason why fabled dragons only lived in the legend. Since this golden dragon had seen through him, there was no point in hiding. Moreover, he had no instinct to resist this golden dragon. Human, fate has led you here. I will give you a choice. You can either remain here forever or accept my offer. The golden dragon phantom figure went straight to the point. Darting a stare at Li Lingtian, a streak of excitement flashed by the golden dragon's gigantic eyes so fast that Li Lingtian failed to capture it. What offer? Li Lingtian's heart sank. Although he had made it all the way here, his life was not in his hands. Surely, it must be an offer he could not refuse. However, he immediately came to grips with it. For a giant dragon to make a deal with him, there must be something it was after. You have the flaming sacred body and ice vitality soul. You will remain here forever if you can't cultivate it within a day. Come and discuss the deal with me once you can do so. At the swing of the golden dragon phantom figure's arm, a golden symbol weighed down on Li Lingtian. This golden symbol brought forth an astounding repression, including the great draconic might and dignity. Poof, thump. The golden symbol's repression crashed onto Li Lingtian, leaving him deeply wounded. Li Lingtian cursed inwardly. Motherf ** cur, you want me to cultivate this *t, yet you gave me such severe injury. God ** eminent, I can honestly lose my life facing this big guy. The giant dragon was easily the size of 100 yards, towering as vast as a hill, while Li Lingtian's build was no more the size of its toe. A simple slap of its claw could land him beaten black and blue. Bam! Taking the form of a phantom, the golden symbol snuck into his mind. As though he was struck, pain was written all over Li Lingtian's face. Ah! Following a loud cry, Li Lingtian passed out. This sort of pain was more gruesome than 9 Yang Sacred Lord's 9 Yang Sacred Fire. It was unknown how long it had been when Li Lingtian gained consciousness, but he quickly lost it again. The moment he fainted, Li Lingtian found himself in a dusky world without the presence of those giant dragons. Ah! 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 There were multiple times in which he regained consciousness, but every time he opened his eyes, he blacked out once more. God * eminent, this will be the death of me. By the time he woke up, his body was completely numb. Gritting his teeth, Li Lingtian faintly mumbled as he examined his surroundings in pain. F * King Hell, it's all draconic chi here. The fact that he was submerged in draconic chi explained the great pain he was in. The golden dragon phantom figure had brought him here when he lost consciousness. True dragon body barrier. There were no words to describe the suffering he felt on his body. When he recalled the golden symbol given by the golden dragon phantom, Li Lingtian circulated his divine mindfulness to the appearance of golden symbols running inside his head. These symbols turned out to be a technique of the Dragon Clan. The true dragon body barrier, a Dragon Clan's technique, was said to be unrivaled amongst the demonic tribe. It was an existence that bore comparison to the human's scripture. Defense to the demonic tribe meant an indestructible body. Their physique was their strongest defense. Needless to say, the king of the demonic tribe was the Dragon Clan, so the Dragon Clan must have reigned supreme over the demonic tribe. Who would have thought that the Dragon Clan would possess its own techniques? It was no wonder they were omnipotent. This is the Dragon Clan's almighty scripture, true dragon body barrier. How am I supposed to cultivate it in a day? Li Lingtian swore out loud. Others may pass out happy to obtain such a scripture, but Li Lingtian was annoyed to be the recipient. A scripture, The so-called scripture was a supreme presence. Competency and gift were not the sole conditions to cultivate it, but luck and great wisdom played a huge role as well. For him to cultivate this scripture in a day, he might as well bang his head on the wall and die. "Ha, my body!" Whilst swearing, Li Lingtian was surprised to find that his physique had improved by multiple folds as the result of the draconic chi's tempering. In fact, his body was gradually merging with the draconic chi. "Let me give it a go." Li Lingtian concluded that the golden dragon phantom figure's intention was not to harm him when it hurled him into this draconic chi and gave the scripture to him. After all, he had never heard that the dragon clan had a habit of torturing. Back in his mind, he sorted out the golden symbols. There were 9 layers to the true dragon body barrier. The first layer of the true dragon body barrier was the earth dragon's energy. Cultivating the first layer would earn him the earth dragon's defense and might, bringing his flesh to emulate that of a powerful earth dragon. The true dragon body barrier was not only a passive bodily defense, but it was also a domineering attack. Cultivating the first layer would unleash the earth dragon's energy and enable one to take after the attack of an earth dragon in a single strike. Draconic energy retrieve. Owing to his past life's wisdom and comprehension, it took Li Lingtian 3 whole hours to fathom the first layer of the true dragon body barrier. He then began to cultivate. The emphasis of this technique was on strengthening the body. Now that Li Lingtian was surrounded by rich and pure draconic chi, he was in the perfect circumstance to cultivate the first layer earth dragon's energy. "Ah, this will be the end of me." As he circulated the true dragon body barrier, an astonishing draconic chi surged into his body. For a moment, Li Lingtian felt as if his body was about to burst apart. Even though he was in possession of flaming sacred body, and had the fire dragon's heart and immemorial ice crystal refined, the domineering draconic chi still pushed him to the verge of bursting. At this point, he could only circulate the true dragon body barrier to swiftly refine and straighten out the draconic chi. As the draconic chi continued to temper Li Lingtian, cracks continuously presented all over his body. However, these cracks were immediately repaired as soon as they appeared. It was an endless cycle of cracks and repair. In a distance, the golden dragon phantom figure's gigantic eyes revealed its satisfaction. This human was full of surprises. He had the will to withstand the body tempering of the draconic chi. He has surpassed my expectation. He'll be able to endure green dragon's chi over him if he cultivates earth dragon's energy, the first layer. The fate of my dragon clan will depend on you. The golden dragon phantom figure murmured to itself. The destruction of the dragon clan was no coincidence, and no one knew that the entire clan met its doom here. Chapter 53 Chapter 53 Three Treasures. Chapter 53 Three Treasures. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Ah! A shout echoed clearly in the air like the groan of a dragon. With that, a figure broke out. Li Lingtian exited the land of draconic chi and reappeared before the golden dragon phantom figure. The endless stream of draconic chi was now gone as it had all been absorbed into his body, pushing his cultivation level to Tier 6 peak warrior spirit state. Due to this, Li Lingtian was brimming with energy and vitality. The draconic chi body tempering had given him a terrifyingly powerful physique. Good, you have cultivated the earth dragon's energy, the first layer. However, it'll get harder as you move through the layers. The golden dragon phantom figure took a glance at Li Lingtian before it bolted away swiftly and approached a giant dragon that towered over the palace. That must be its flesh. What is this deal all about, that made you so willing to bring out the draconic chi? Li Lingtian remained a calm demeanor. After all that he had been through, his mentality had reached an ultimate state. My offer is simple. Should you be able to cultivate the true dragon body barrier to its 6th layer one day, which is the divine dragon's energy, I hope that you'll be able to resurrect 9,000 dragon clans. The golden dragon phantom figure replied solemnly with an expectant look on its face. The powerful dragon clan had been completely wiped out, and this human was their only hope. Moreover, this human was, in a way, from that world, so some sentiments should exist between both parties. The divine dragon's energy? Do you think I'm a god? The calm Li Lingtian jumped at the golden dragon phantom figure's words. The earth dragon's energy itself was a challenge to cultivate. He would not have pulled through if it were not for the abundant draconic chi. For one to cultivate up to the 6th layer of divine dragon's energy would mean that the person had exceeded a true godlike state, and God knows how long it would take him to reach that stage. What's more, your capability will reach great heights, and you'll be the beneficiary to many advantages for cultivating the true dragon body barrier. As long as you agree to our deal, you won't be shortchanged. Take a look at this. The golden dragon phantom figure made a grabbing gesture in the air, and out came 3 items. The appearance of the 3 items left Li Lingtian dumbfounded. Of course, it was not his intention to reveal his emotions in front of this phantom figure, but these 3 items were so shocking that Li Lingtian lost control of himself. What are these? Looking at those 3 items, Li Lingtian started to freak out. Gasping, he asked out of excitement. Out of these 3 items, one of them was a 10-foot-long battle halberd. The battle halberd emitted an overwhelmingly domineering chi, yet this chi was only an inkling that had escaped from its sealed state. Besides, there was also a foot-long pill tripod which gave out vintage and rustic chi. Although there was not an ounce of force in it, Li Lingtian had the urge to prostrate in worship towards this pill tripod. The last item was a 3-foot-long blade. This blade was like a pool of stagnant water without any presence of chi, but Li Lingtian dared not underestimate it. This is Roaring Dragon's battle halberd. It's a divine equipment that has been passed down for many generations in my dragon clan. This item is the Heaven and Earth Creation Tripod. You can have a feel of it yourself, of its effects and strength. As for this, it is the Horizon Despot Blade, a divine equipment built by your human ancestors. What do you think? If we have a deal, these treasures are yours to keep. Looking at Li Lingtian's state of shock, the golden dragon phantom figure felt smug as it posed the question. The dragon clan was destroyed, and alas, it had succumbed to a soul fragment as well. This human was a great candidate, but if it missed the boat, there would not be another one. The dragon clan would disappear forever from the face of history. Aren't you worried that I'll take these treasures and flee? Perhaps I'll never advance to the 6th layer. Li Lingtian was ogling these 3 treasures. Nevertheless, it was best that he asked the right questions before he landed himself in some trap. Of course I am. I have but one condition. The golden dragon phantom figure let out a human-like smile. Upon achieving the 7th tier, the demonic tribe would be presented an opportunity to take the form of a human, and this applied to the dragon clan as well. What's the condition? Here it came, finally. The 3 treasures would not be given to him unconditionally, but this came as no surprise. Take this out with you. You will have to sign and agree to a friendly bond. The golden dragon phantom figure then pointed at a large dragon egg at the side of the hall. When Li Lingtian turned towards the same direction, he realized that this dragon egg that was only a foot in length, and it did not live up to his expectation at all. Sigh, I guess you leave me with no choice. Let's begin. A friendly bond it is. Li Lingtian had thought about it for a long while. Despite his great ability and wisdom, he could not do as he pleased in such a place. Moreover, the dragon clan was not one to beat around the bush with. They let their fist do the talking, and could simply crush their opponent for disagreeing. Great, you're beginning to grow on me. Be prepared for the green dragon's energy to be over you. The golden dragon phantom figure nodded with satisfaction as this human had surpassed its expectations. With that, the golden dragon phantom figure surged its body of draconic chi and led mysterious golden incantations to appear out of thin air. Suddenly, astounding draconic chi rose from the 100 giant dragons in the palace, and they quickly amassed. These draconic chi were the giant dragon's energy. On top of that, the golden dragon phantom figure too emitted a sacred dragon's energy. At the combination of the two draconic energies, the palace started to tremble, and as a dragon's howl sounded, draconic might burst out. At this moment, Li Lingtian could not help but quiver in the knees. Li Lingtian swiftly cast the earth dragon's energy over his body as a barrier of protection. However, the earth dragon's energy was useless against the giant dragon's energy and sacred dragon's energy. Nevertheless, the earth dragon's energy was a draconic energy, so he would not be ripped apart and vaporized at least. While Li Lingtian endured the pain from resisting against the giant dragon's energy and sacred dragon's energy, he took a good look at the golden dragon phantom figure. After the integration of both draconic energies, the combined energy immediately shot towards the dragon egg. The astounding draconic energy wrapped around the dragon egg and continuously spun around it. It was unknown how long it took before a crack appeared on the dragon egg, and a subtle noise followed. Crackle! The dragon egg cracked open. When Li Lingtian feasted his eyes on the little guy inside the egg, he could not help but feel confused. Inside the dragon egg was a snow-white bunny. This rabbit was similar to those rabbits in his past life. The only difference was the scarlet, red, and green color fur on its forehead. Heaven and earth bond. The golden dragon phantom figure was growing faint, as though it would vanish at any moment. Even the 100 giant dragons looked like they had weakened significantly as their vigors depleted. The golden dragon phantom figure then unleashed a golden incantation that quickly created a bond between Li Lingtian and the white bunny. Shortly thereafter, Li Lingtian could sense the white bunny's thoughts. Bam! A powerful draconic energy entered Li Lingtian's body at the sound of an explosion. Although the golden dragon phantom figure was swaying aimlessly and on the brink of disappearing, its eyes were beaming with excitement. It gazed towards the white rabbit lovingly, like a parent towards its youngling. Here is the draconic energy of 3,000 worlds for your cultivation. I hope you will treat it kindly and hold to your end of the promise. You may return now. Although the phantom figure was fading away, it was still eager as it swung its claw to hurl a green item at Li Lingtian. Li Lingtian caught the item with one hand and grabbed it tightly. At the same time, a compelling heaven and earth's energy catapulted the white bunny and him away. Li Lingtian had the urge to run his mouth because the 3 treasures gradually faded out of his sight. That was a divine equipment, and just like that, an amazing existence had disappeared. The inability to reconcile with that fact almost had him bleeding in the mouth. Chapter 54 Chapter 54 The Amazing Xiao Bai. Chapter 54 The Amazing Xiao Bai. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Swoosh! With the wind blowing in his face, Li Lingtian felt clear-headed. However, the fact that he was separated from the divine equipment when the heaven and earth's energy propelled him away killed him inside. Huh! Amid drowning in regret, Li Lingtian suddenly realized an astonishing matter. He was now standing on the same mountain range, but this mountain range no longer bore any spiritual chi. He felt as though he was in a dream. He then took a glance at the item in his hand and found that it was a simple green ring. If not for the ring and the white bunny beside him, Li Lingtian would have believed that he was dreaming. I'm hungry. A thought entered his mind. As the white rabbit gazed back at him with red jewel eyes, Li Lingtian started to grow fond of this adorable rabbit. "Are you a rabbit or a dragon?" Li Lingtian was perplexed. Although this rabbit had signed a friendly bond with him, he still could not believe that this little guy was a dragon. Was there a dragon like this? "I am, of course, a dragon. I'm a dragon rabbit, also the strongest rainbow true dragon in the dragon clan." The white bunny conveyed its thoughts with a proud look on its face before it pointed at the tricolor fur on its forehead with its paw. Dragon rabbit! Li Lingtian fell into deep thought. It was no wonder the golden dragon phantom figure had such confidence in its eyes. This rabbit was the dragon clan's strongest rainbow true dragon, albeit a youngling. Those with the bloodline of the true dragon would only gain strength in adulthood. He then turned his gaze to the simplistic ring in his hand for a closer examination. An item from the golden dragon phantom figure must not be ordinary. With that, Li Lingtian cautiously released his divine mindfulness towards the ring. Once his divine mindfulness had entered inside the ring, Li Lingtian's jaw dropped. This was no ring but a world. It was the earlier dragon abysm no less. Ignoring the dimensional distance, his divine mindfulness arrived within the dragon abysm's palace. However, the golden dragon phantom figure was gone, so was the golden dragon's flesh. Only the bodies of the 100 giant dragons remained. 3 treasures also suspended in the air. At the sight of these, Li Lingtian became excited. As it turned out, this place was a standalone dimension. Everything was inside the ring, hence it seemed like he had overthought the situation. These dragon bones and bodies in there could be taken out at will. Li Lingtian retrieved his divine mindfulness from the ring and placed a drop of blood essence on it to begin refinery. Only by refining the ring would it then belong to him, and everything it in would be under his thumb. Divine Dragon Ring. The ring tempering was completed an hour later, and Li Lingtian immediately wore the ring on the middle finger of his right hand. The simplistic ring did not carry any qi. The ring was a perfect fit on his finger as though it was made for him. With it cemented to his finger, it was impossible to take it off. He also knew that this ring, called the Divine Dragon Ring, had a standalone dimension in it. Although he was not aware of its size, he would soon find out once his cultivation level reached a certain height. "What should I name you?" After he was done, Li Lingtian noticed the white rabbit was looking at him. Since they had formalized a friendly bond, they were now a pair. Even though it was not a life or death bond, the other party would reincarnate in the next life if any one of them were to perish. "You should give me a mighty name, not some common name like Tom, Dick, or Harry." The rabbit sent its thoughts over to remind Li Lingtian. The names of the dragon clan had always been imperious, so it did not want a common name. "Shall by copyright it is." Having said that, Li Lingtian turned to advance to a distance. "Shall by, what name is this? What does shall by mean? Shall by it is then." Confused, the dragon rabbit questioned itself. At the sight of Li Lingtian dashing away, its agile body too moved in a flash. Streaking 10 yards in a leap, it appeared behind Li Lingtian in the blink of an eye. Soon, the duo bolted into a distance with their backs facing the mountain. While they were on the way, Xiaobai looked on with perplexed eyes as Li Lingtian searched around for medicinal supply. "What are these things for?" Xiaobai sent its thoughts to Li Lingtian's head. It failed to grasp the reason why Li Lingtian was picking up these flowers and grass. "These are useful for raising cultivation levels when they're refined to pills, and for this purpose, I can refine them to pills. Pills that are refined by these materials are way better than this." As Li Lingtian and Xiaobai were bound by a friendly bond, they could communicate through their thoughts, without speaking. However, Li Lingtian preferred to talk, because he was accustomed to it. With this, it seemed as though he was talking to himself. He took out a bottle of pills from his storage sack. These grade 3 pills were snatched from those super geniuses. Li Lingtian hurled the jade bottle over to Xiao Bai. Huh? This is good. Xiao Bai opened the jade bottle for a whiff. As the qi was alluring, it poured the jade bottle down its throat, downing the pills like they were candy. Soon, its vision started to blur before it lost consciousness. Li Lingtian tried to stop it, but it was too late. There were 20 grade 3 pills in the jade bottle at least. Even a warrior ascendant would not be able to handle swallowing them all in one go, let alone a warrior spirit like himself. His heart sank when Xiao Bai passed out. Would the dragon rabbit meet its fate just like that? Swish, 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 swish. With Xiao Bai in his embrace, Li Lingtian swiftly made a dash afar until he found a cave to rest. He kept an eye on Xiao Bai as he took a breather. It would be troublesome if it were to die here. It was 3 hours later when Xiao Bai finally awoke. After it came around, Xiao Bai smacked its lips repeatedly in an attempt to relive the taste, leaving Li Lingtian speechless. Do you still have anything like that? Xiao Bai passed its thoughts into Li Lingtian's mind. Not only was it hooked on the pill, but the earlier pills had raised its cultivation level by a large margin. Blessed with unending longevity, the dragon clan and demonic tribe engaged in cultivation all their lives, so it was unusually difficult for them to advance in tiers. However, it never crossed Xiao Bai's mind that these pills would push its cultivation level that quickly. There's none left, but don't do it again. These pills are garbage. The pills I refine are much better by this. You won't be able to handle a single pill, Li Lingtian responded with a serious tone. Li Lingtian did not want Xiao Bai to overdose on pills. Then refine it for me. Xiao Bai looked at Li Lingtian with pitiful eyes. After all, it was a waste not to make use of the refinery at hand. Refine? It's easier said than done. I need to find medicinal supplies to refine. Li Lingtian was rendered speechless by this little guy. Not everyone was capable of refining pills, even with the right materials. Not to mention, medicinal supplies were valuable. Isn't it just these flowers and grass? I'll help you. Xiao Bai took a look at the medical supply in Li Lingtian's hands before it disappeared outside the cave in a flash. Taken aback by Xiao Bai's insane velocity, Li Lingtian reflected whether the mad skills applied to all of the dragon clan. Li Lingtian caught up with Xiao Bai and soon arrived at an area where it was rich with spiritual qi. The richer the spiritual qi, the better the medicinal supply. 1,000-year white fruit. 1,000-year purple flower. This is the 10,000-year scarlet fruit. 10,000-year fire dragon fruit. I'm rich. 1,000-year spiritual fruit. Haha, jackpot! Enthusiastic over the countless herbs and fruits, Li Lingtian swiftly collected these medicinal supplies. On the other hand, Xiao Bai was perplexed by Li Lingtian's elation. It's full. Huh? How silly of me! I can just store the items in my storage sacks in the Divine Dragon Ring. For a moment, Li Lingtian was in a bind with his storage sacks filled to the brim. Nevertheless, the thought of the Divine Dragon Ring sprung to his mind, prompting him to place his spiritual stones and storage sacks items in a corner inside the ring. Following that, Xiao Bai became responsible for the search for medicinal supplies and valuable fruits, while Li Lingtian did the picking. Li Lingtian was aware of the dragon clan's sharp sense of smell towards treasures. Xiao Bai was capable of sniffing out powerful spiritual qi and treasures within a 300 miles radius. With such a great sense of smell, Li Lingtian was bubbling over with excitement. Chapter 55 Chapter 55 Horizon Despot Blade. Chapter 55 Horizon Despot Blade. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Xiao Bai, don't touch that. It's a 10,000-year purple jade fruit, that could advance a warrior ascendant's cultivation to another tier. Although it can only be used once, it's still out of this world. Don't ruin it. For the past few days, Li Lingtian had been following closely behind Xiao Bai. The pathway Xiao Bai led him to had been filled with valuable medicinal supplies, flowers, and fruit. Li Lingtian immediately put a stop to Xiao Bai, who was about to pick a purple jade fruit for consumption. Although there were over 100 of these 10,000-year purple jade fruits on this tree, one fruit less was one fruit wasted. Xiao Bai would not raise much of its cultivation even if it ate it. However, the purple jade fruit would produce better effects if it was refined into a pill rather than consume it on its own. Roar, roar! At that moment, a multicolored ferocious beast emerged not far from the purple jade tree. It then growled loudly, as if proclaiming ownership on the purple jade fruit. Ob*****, why arc there demonic beasts everywhere? And a fourth-tier level 4 multicolored beast too, Li Lingtian cursed. Here were the 10,000-year purple jade fruits, yet a fourth-tier level 4 demonic beast stood in his way. It put a Motherf*** King damper on his plans. He may have advanced to Tier 6 through the draconic chi body tempering, but there was no certainty he would win against a 4th-tier level 4 demonic beast. Before, he would take to his heels at the sight of 4th-tier demonic beast. He had once killed a 4th-tier level 1 demonic beast with great difficulty, and it had left him with some injuries. It would be the death of him to challenge a 4th-tier level 4 demonic beast this time too. Xiao Bai, be careful! If Xiao Bai were not around, Li Lingtian would take his chance and unleash his killer move. However, with Xiao Bai present, he could risk putting Xiao Bai's life on the line if he lost. Nevertheless, Li Lingtian's mind was blown by Xiao Bai's actions. His widened eyes were a dead giveaway of his disbelief. Roar! As Xiao Bai let out a howl, its foot-long body released a huge draconic might. The surge of draconic might brought about an astonishing vigor, forcing the 4th-tier level 4 multicolored beast to lay prostrate on the ground in fear. This was the draconic might, the dignity of a dragon. The supreme dignity carried the weight of a 10,000 beast supreme. However, this was not the only cause of Li Lingtian's surprise as Xiao Bai's foot-long body exploded into a 5-yard-long tricolored dragon. 4th tier, the existence of a 4th-tier level 3 beast, Li Lingtian cried out in alarm. It had never crossed his mind that this inconspicuous Xiao Bai was at 4th tier at birth. If one were to compare, this would only bring them down to their knees. Even demonic beasts would be left feeling resentful if they were compared to Xiao Bai. Other demonic beasts, as well as humans, were riddled with the question as to whether they had the talent to cultivate when they were born, while Xiao Bai was born straight into 4th tier and possessed the capabilities that were equivalent to a warrior ascendant. Roar, roar! Xiao Bai let out violent growls as if it was giving the multicolored beast a telling-off. Other humans may not understand the words coming out of Xiao Bai's mouth, but Li Lingtian was well aware that Xiao Bai was giving the multicolored beast a choice, whether to submit or die. Roar, roar! Reclining to a flat position, the multicolored beast growled in a low voice before assuming the docile mannerism of a house cat. At that sight, Li Lingtian fell back on his bottoms. The world had just gone mad. Xiao Bai then sent its thoughts to Li Lingtian's mind. In an attempt to probe, Li Lingtian walked towards the purple jade tree, but the multicolored beast showed no signs of resistance. With that, Li Lingtian immediately gathered the purple jade fruits, collecting more than hundreds of them. He and Xiao Bai then departed together, with the multicolored beast tagging along. It was a rather strange sight to see Xiao Bai taking a ride on the multicolored beast. Days went by as Li Lingtian and Xiao Bai focused on their search for medicinal supplies and rare fruits within Divine Dragon Palace. The multicolored beast too was in their company. 2 months had passed by then, and the time to leave Hidden Dragon Isle was around the corner. There were now huge piles of 1,000-year and 10,000-year medicinal supplies inside Li Lingtian's divine dragon ring, including countless of 100-year supplies. In the end, Li Lingtian placed these supplies in bulks inside the ring, in hopes that these herbs would grow inside the divine dragon ring. There's still another month left, so I'll be concentrating on my cultivation. Please provide me with protection in the meantime. Li Lingtian found a cave that overflowed with spiritual qi before he wormed himself into it. With that, the multicolored beast kept watch on the outside while Xiao Bai lay to rest beside Li Lingtian. Inside the cave, Li Lingtian began his cultivation in a cross-legged position. He was concentrating on the true dragon body barrier, as well as the heaven and earth reincarnation, which both were of scripture status. Heaven and earth creation tripod refine. After a period of cultivation, he took out the heaven and earth creation tripod from his divine dragon ring. The foot-long pill tripod carried a vintage vibe that one could not help but bow down to. Li Lingtian then motioned a spell and aimed it towards the creation tripod. However, the spell was immediately repelled, disabling the pill tripod from being tempered. The situation took Li Lingtian by surprise. He fell deep into ponder for a long time. A super treasure could not be refined through ordinary spells, but he had not been informed of any other tempering methods. So, he racked his brains for a while before he shot a drop of blood essence towards it. Swish, swish. The blood essence seemed to set the creation tripod on fire, which suddenly prompted the ancient creation tripod to emit a lazy halation. Li Lingtian could then sense a connection, but because he could not refine this creation tripod as a whole, its use was limited to pill refinery solely. Nevertheless, he was also unaware of the creation tripod's actual application. He was slightly disappointed but more so hopeful. He had always believed that great treasures could not be successfully refined in one go like garbage found at the side of the street. The harder it was to temper a treasure, the more powerful it was. This was his belief. Horizon Despot Blade refine. Li Lingtian retrieved his creation tripod before he turned to temper the Horizon Despot Blade. The Horizon Despot Blade was a divine equipment refined by the earliest ancestor of mankind, and it yielded an incredible force. Similarly, it was useless to refine it through spells, so he resorted to temper the weapon with his blood essence for a full hour before the Horizon Despot Blade was finally secured. The Horizon Despot Blade. I can only unleash the force of a peerless onyx equipment at my current cultivation level. Only by raising my cultivation level would I be able to unleash more of its capability. Admiring the Horizon Despot Blade, Li Lingtian was filled with glee. As a warrior spirit, he could only release the strength comparable to an onyx equipment, but the capacity would increase following his advancement to warrior king. The higher his cultivation level, the more the restriction would be lifted. The Roaring Dragon Battle Halbert was next on the tempering list. Similar to the Horizon Despot Blade, Li Lingtian could only bring a fraction of its capacity to play. Nevertheless, a fraction still proved a great force. This was all due to his limited cultivation level. It seemed that without great cultivation level, realizing one's full potential was unattainable even with a divine equipment in possession. In short, he was unable to make capital out of his equipment. After he had tempered the 3 treasures, Li Lingtian began to refine pills. Although he still had grade 2 spirit binding pills on him, they were all rubbish pills. The pills he refined himself were of much better quality. As the creation tripod was not in his full control, Li Lingtian could not assess its ability. However, it was definitely useful for pill refineries. Temper. Following a shout, the creation tripod appeared in front of him before it suddenly grew to 3 foot in size. The creation tripod now let out a faint white glow. With spiritual stones set ablaze to heat up the pill tripod, Li Lingtian hurled the medicinal supplies in. He cast his divine mindfulness to stabilize the concoction before following the refining process step by step. The skilled techniques that he demonstrated was that of a seasoned apothecary. 5 minutes later, the creation tripod was opened and it unveiled the success of spiritual binding pill refinery. Peerless spirit binding pills. Is this the force of the creation tripod? The quality of the spirit binding pills caught Li Lingtian off guard. Since he had used his divine mindfulness to pay close attention to the creation tripod during refinery, he found that the creation tripod had extracted all impurities, leaving only the valuable concoction behind. Hence, the result of these peerless pills was all on the creation tripod. With these peerless spirit binding pills, Li Lingtian could improve his cultivation level quickly. Moreover, he could help others by refining pills in exchange for spiritual stones and medicinal supplies. Chapter 56 Gathering of Geniuses. Chapter 56 Gathering of Geniuses. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. After days had passed, Li Lingtian left the cave and quickly headed towards the outside world. His cultivation had reached a Tier 7 warrior spirit state in the span of a month. As a Tier 7 warrior spirit, he was no longer intimidated by a warrior king, or specifically anyone beneath a Tier 1 warrior king, because the draconic chi and domineering force of the roaring dragon battle halberd alone would be enough to slaughter a regular warrior king. The Horizon Despot blade may be powerful, but Li Lingtian dared not put it to use hastily. Unless it was out of absolute necessity, he would not apply the Horizon Despot blade. Due to the draconic chi and draconic chi body tempering present in his body, he was able to gain more control over the roaring dragon battle halberd. This roaring dragon battle halberd and Horizon Despot blade were both divine equipment. Moreover, by the looks of the golden dragon phantom figure, these two divine equipment must be more than they meet the eye. While Li Lingtian was engaged in cultivation, he had refined countless pills, feeding a few of them to Xiao Bai and the multicolored beast daily. Owing to the multicolored beast's reliance on the pills and repression from Xiao Bai, it became Li Lingtian's mount. On the vast surface of Divine Dragon Palace, many warriors caught glimpse of a huge multicolored beast and a young man in white riding on its back. The young man in white held a white bunny in his embrace. A fourth-tier demonic beast was in existence that even a warrior king would give way in avoidance of conflict. They would hide far away before this fourth-tier demonic beast had a chance to rip them apart. Since its opening, Divine Dragon Palace had remained visible on the surface of the lake. Numerous warriors were denied entry, so all they could do was settle on the outside to look for medicinal supply. As time went by, the moment to depart Hidden Dragon Isle was fast approaching, and the warriors who entered Divine Dragon Palace came out one after the other. As there was no account of a previous entry, no one knew whether they would be teleported out when the time came. It was a risk they dared not take, hence the decision to exit the palace. By the lake, thousands of warriors amassed. The majority of them had always been waiting outside, while the remaining portion was those who came out from the inside. Sky Dragon Empire, bring your heads over. Riding on a third-tier level 7 golden crystal beast copyright, Tian Wuji shouted. He darted a sharp gaze at the warriors from Sky Dragon Empire. During his time in Divine Dragon Palace, he had subdued a third-tier level 7 demonic beast, an existence comparable to a Tier 7 warrior king. He was beaming with confidence to earn a strong demonic beast as his mount. Moreover, he had gained a few treasures and countless medicinal supplies. The thought of Li Lingtian suddenly prompted Tian Wuji to lose his temper on the warriors from Sky Dragon Empire. Even if Li Lingtian were to come to their rescue, he was fully capable of destroying him. Tian Wuji, Were you this arrogant when Li Lingtian was around? Displeased, Dongfang Qingyu returned the gaze at Tian Wuji. However, not only was Tian Wuji's mount a third-tier level 7 demonic beast, but Tian Wuji himself was a tier 2 warrior king and a step away from tier 3. This meant that his ability amongst them here was unrivaled. Dongfang Qingyu, you're just a piece of trash. You're nothing against me. If Li Lingtian does come back alive, I will tear him to bits, Tian Wuji cried out loud. For a moment, many warriors from Tianjin Empire burst out into laughter. Tianjin Empire was the strongest empire in eastern Spirit Greenland. Renowned for their strength, they naturally looked down upon Sky Dragon Empire. Disciples from the Southern Empire, Northern Dusk Empire, as well as the 4 mysterious clans, joined in the clamor too. Wiping out Sky Dragon Empire's disciples in such a place would destroy any possibility of Sky Dragon Empire from having a future. People from Tianjin Empire, heed my call. Kill all of Sky Dragon Empire's men. Any treasures that you attain are yours to keep. A hint of ruthlessness flashed past Tian Wujin's eyes. There was no restriction of a massacre in Hidden Dragon Isle, and since the two empires had always been on bad terms, he was not going to let this rare opportunity go to waste. Your Highness the Second Prince, I won't bother with these people, but when Li Lingtian comes out, leave him to me. I will make him regret his life for killing people of my divine sword sect. As Yan Ming's voice was heard, a young man walked out of Divine Dragon Palace's gate with a confident smile on his face. The mediocre onyx equipment in his hand released a powerful repression. Huh? Yan Ming, you broke through to Tier 4 Warrior King. Tian Wuji was taken aback. A Tier 4 Warrior King was much stronger than him. As Divine Sword Sect was also a super sect in Tianjin Empire, he was not in the position to offend him. Haha, Yan Ming, you're one step ahead of me. But Li Lingtian is mine and I want him dead. Another voice was heard coming from Divine Dragon Palace's gate, and a frail youth walked out. Qing Hezi of 10,000 Demons sect carried himself with ease as he rode on a third-tier level 7 demonic beast. Soon, one warrior after another came out, either having advanced in tiers, got their hands on great treasures, or had harvested valuable medicinal supplies. Each one of them who made it out was duly rewarded. This made the warriors on the outside green with envy. Their cultivation level was too low anyway, they would only be sending themselves to their death if they were to enter. For a moment, 7 warrior kings diverted their anger on Li Lingtian. These super geniuses kept a close watch on the warriors from Sky Dragon Empire. If Li Lingtian failed to show up, they would take out their anger on the Sky Dragon Empire's warriors by killing all of them. Days went by and a stream of warriors came out, yet there were no signs of Li Lingtian. Senior sister, do you think junior brother Li will come out in one piece? Lu Yi turned her gaze to Zhou Qingqing, who was also the beneficiary of countless medicinal supplies and treasures inside. Her cultivation level had advanced to Tier 1 Peak Warrior King, and the velocity of her cultivation had left many envious. Come out? Even if he did, what chance does he stand on current circumstances? Are you showing concern for junior brotherly? Zhou Qingqing took notice of countless warrior kings who were directing their fury on Li Lingtian. Even if Li Lingtian made it out, everything was pointed to a disaster. To think that everyone counted on Li Lingtian to open the gate for entry. Now that they were in possession of treasures, nothing was holding them back. Naturally, these people wanted Li Lingtian dead. Li Lingtian had stepped on their toes, after all. Zhou Qingqing then took one look at Louis's worried face and suddenly got the picture. Hence, she teased Louis. Senior sister, what are you saying? Louis's exquisitely flawless face turned red. Her bashful side turned the heads of many super geniuses, who revealed a strange look on their faces. It's the last day today. Li Lingtian must have died in Divine Dragon Palace. If you want to put the blame on someone, you should blame Li Lingtian. Tian Wuji fixated his eyes on Divine Dragon Palace's gate. Li Lingtian had not made an appearance, and if they were to wait any longer, they would be teleported out before they could lay their hands on the disciples from Sky Dragon Empire. Having said that, Tianjin Empire's 7 warrior kings and the Southern Empire's 7 warrior kings stood up. The other warriors too swiftly encircled Sky Dragon Empire's warriors. Only a handful from Northern Dusk Empire took no action because of the mutual relationship Northern Dusk Empire and Sky Dragon Empire shared. During a time like this, they would not be on opposing ends with the Southern Empire and Tianjin Empire if they did not lend a hand to Sky Dragon Empire. A war was about to break out. With Sky Dragon Empire's 200-odd warriors against 1,000 overmasters, they stood no chance to win. At this point, countless warriors from Sky Dragon Empire were put in a tight spot. Bam! Wham! Ah ah ah! Tianjin Empire's Tianwuji was the first to make a move. As he swung his onyx equipment to launch an attack at Sky Dragon Empire's warriors, sounds of blasts were followed by cries that echoed in the background. Let Tianjin Empire handle it while we sit back and watch. We're only here for Li Lingtian. Seeing that Sky Dragon Empire's warriors had no means to fight back, the Southern Empire's warrior took a backseat. They were not fools after all. They would not be able to bear the weight should Sky Dragon Empire decide to fight to the bitter end for offending them. Humph! Tian Wuji snorted coldly. There was no reason to stop now that he had initiated a war. The few warrior kings stood aside and watched while other warrior spirits and warriors joined in the killing spree. Zhou Qingqing was in disarray. She was not in the position to strike as the opposing warrior kings had not laid a hand, but if she were to raise her hand, she would be met with the few warrior kings' fatal moves. In a minute, Sky Dragon Empire's 50-odd warriors were killed while a dozen from Tianjin Empire were slaughtered. At this rate, the warriors from Sky Dragon Empire would be wiped out within 10 minutes. Who was the fat F***CK who said he'll kill me? Come forth. At this very crucial moment, a cold voice was heard from Divine Dragon Palace's gate. The voice may be calm, but the icy tone sent quivers down everyone's spine. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.